You're gonna need them. Are you for Joe Biden or the Great White Hope, Donald Trump?
I'm riding with Biden.
And why?
Because he's going to do a way better job than Trump has.
Like what?
Like everything, managing the coronavirus, foreign policy, domestic policy. What do you want to talk about?
Amazing. And Joe Biden or the Great White Hope, Donald Trump?
I'm voting for Donald Trump.
And why?
Because we need to use his economic plan to rebuild the 43rd district.
Really?
Absolutely.
And he's going to do that?
No, I'm going to use his plan to rebuild the 43rd district. He's not going to do it himself. I'm going to use his plan so we can rebuild our own communities. We need it really bad. We underserved. We have the worst education in the 43rd district in the United States. In the 43rd district, we need economic development. Jobs are leaving. We're 43% below the poverty level, so we need a lot of improvement.
How would Trump help that?
His policies will.
In what way?
Well, he has the Platinum Plan, which is the $500 billion that he wants to invest into the community. We're going to use that. We're going to rebuild our community, rebuild our education system. Criminal justice reform, we're going to get an innocent man out of prison, and we're going to expunge records so we can get people back to work. He got a lot of things that we can use to improve our district.
Right on. Joe Biden been in office for years, before you were born, before your mama was born. What has he done?
I mean, he's got a lot of accomplishments as senator. What do you mean? I mean, we can
Don't
talk
say
about
the wrong things.
Don't say the wrong things. He got an assault weapons ban that a lot of Democrats felt good about. He got provisions under the crime bill which protected women from domestic abuse. He had a lot of things that he helped Obama with. Like, I mean, what do you want to talk about?
So you can't think of anything he's done?
I just gave two. He hasn't been president for 4 years.
Amazing. Thank God, huh? So, Sherman, are you for Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
I'm actually for neither. I'm the type of guy to just sit back and see what happens and just go with the flow from there.
Are you going to vote?
No, I'm not.
You're not going to vote?
No, sir.
What the?
I just don't participate in that. I just never have.
Really?
Yeah.
And why not?
Because of my beliefs, I'm more so like the kind of guy to just like stand back and just like try to achieve what I want to achieve for my people in a different kind of way. You know, I just really never thought that voting will do for black people, you know, like we think that it will, because it never has.
So you don't think either one of these guys could help improve black Americans' lives?
No, I feel like we have to basically improve our lives ourselves first, you know, and get people like, you know, that are progressive in our community to actually help out first before we go to anyone else and try to get them to help us.
Can I say something real quick?
Let me just finish. 1 minute. What is it that y'all want? I mean, what do you want? What kind of help y'all need?
Well, we need opportunities.
Well, he's doing that.
How?
By bringing more money into the community, job opportunities.
Job opportunities where?
Oh, well, before the Chinese virus, they were everywhere.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's easy to say that from the outside looking in, but when you're actually like in the field, you really don't see the opportunities that people think about that they say are actually there. Okay. You know, because I've been in South Central ever since I was a child, and I don't see any opportunities, nothing at all, and it looks exactly the same.
Yeah, Maxine Waters.
I mean, whoever it is, it's just like whatever, you know, that, I mean, you saying that, I mean, that's cool, but then that also, you know, has me stand firm in my belief that politics was never the way and it never helped us. Oh, okay. Like, we're the only people or class of people that actually depend on politics. Like, the Chinese don't, the Indians don't, the Hispanics are trying to get them to, but they really don't. Yeah. Like, we're the only minority class that's just like, hey, your vote matters and your vote can change your life. But in the meantime, you have, you know, Koreatown, you have big banks and, you know, buildings and, you know, Chinatown, you have, you know, where's Africatown in LA?
That's true.
Like, we don't have anything like that. We don't have no skyscrapers. We've been here for hundreds of years, and the Koreans come here and they're building skyscrapers in LA. Yeah. And we don't have anything.
Amazing. What were you about to say?
If in fact, because I feel like we bonded in the back, right? We talked, we had great conversation. Yeah. If in fact that you open up your ballot and my name is on there, just check it and drop it in. That's all I'm saying. I'll build a skyscraper and put your name on. Just check Joe Collins, just drop it. You don't got to vote for anybody else, just me. Just throwing it out there.
That's right. Promote. Andrew, who are you for, Donald Trump or Joe Biden?
No, I'm for Trump all the way. I came here 4 years ago, and you and I got into it, and I was against Trump, and you were for him.
Yeah,
Everything, single thing you said turned out to be true.
I rest my case.
He has done, I think, a terrific job.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've come into a crisis. It's a tough crisis. It's a crisis. Should I press?
Oh, yeah.
This one? Is that it?
Go ahead. No, it should be on.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay,
All
make
right.
sure it's green.
It's green.
Okay.
It's a tough crisis, but it's a crisis everywhere. It's a crisis all through Europe. It's a crisis everywhere that it's hit, and so it's a crisis here as well. But who are you going to trust to bring the economy back? It came roaring back in this last quarter. He has made our foreign policy sane again after the absolute insanity of the Obama era. And most importantly, the left has gone nuts. I mean, most importantly, the Democrats are now a fully socialist, anti-constitutional party. They don't like the First Amendment, they don't like the Second Amendment, they don't like the Electoral College, they want to pack the courts, and then they say, well, Donald Trump is a danger to the Constitution. And I think, which part of the Constitution do you like? What are you trying to protect?
Yeah.
Trump, I still will maintain that Trump has a lot of problems.
Like what?
Well, he's rude. His biggest problem for me, because I care more about policy than anything, is that he won't reform entitlements, and he has promised not to reform entitlements. I think they need to be reformed. I think entitlements were put in place to kick in at 65 when people died at 63, and now people live to about 80. And I think that means you can move up when they start to pay out and solve the entire problem for a generation.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something Trump is not engaged with. There's no appetite for it. There's no
Well,
political.
he'll do that next year.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
You think he's going to win?
The war going up.
You think he's going to win?
Oh, yeah.
You do?
He's going to win by a landslide. No, who said that? I said that. You disagree with Andrew.
In so many ways. I don't even know where to start.
Count the ways.
Let's do the First Amendment. Do you think that American citizens that burn the flag should have their citizenship revoked?
No.
That's something that Donald Trump has said multiple times. He said it in 20.
Donald Trump says a lot of things, and when I criticize him, that's what I criticize him about. He has a big mouth. But, that's one of the things you learn to live with.
So as somebody that does like political commentary, do you realize how frustrating it is that every stupid thing Donald Trump says, you can hand wave that away? It's just Donald Trump talking.
It's also frustrating that when he puts on a tie, you guys go out into hysterics over it.
When he puts on a what?
If he says good morning, you say, well, is it good morning everywhere?
We don't-
every single thing he said has been a crisis since the guy took office, and most of that stuff never happened. There was no Russian collusion for 3 years. We had to sit.
I don't know why we're.
Well, I'm
Calm
just
down, Ben
I'm just
Shapiro.
saying-
Okay, hold on.
No.
Let's just very simply. Okay. So First Amendment. So he says he wants to revoke citizenship for people that burn the flag. He attacks private businesses and tell them that they should fire people for being critical of his administration. With Kaepernick, he did that. That doesn't worry you at all? That doesn't seem like an overstep of what the president ought to be doing for somebody that values freedom of expression? He didn't, but he called on the NFL to do it.
You should have fired him.
In Colin Kaepernick's defense,
fired.
he stuck before he got put out the
That
NFL.
is, first
Just
of all,
saying.
that's not true.
Yes,
by
it is.
any
His stats
measure,
are going
or any-
down.
That is
He's a
absolutely
terrible
not true.
quarterback.
That is absolutely not true. But
Colin
that's
Kaepernick got
that's,
sacked 28 times, and he
That is-
had a 30% completion rate. He was going down the drain.
So, so it's just, I'm not going to argue NFL stats. It's just not true. You can go look him up if you care to.
We can't find him.
I'm just curious for somebody that has attacked the First Amendment more than I can remember any president in my lifetime doing. So whether that's calling on Kaepernick being fired, whether that's saying that people that burn the flag should have their citizenship revoked, whether that's saying that they should open up libel and defamation suits against the media, the President of the United States, continuously undermining and attacking our media institutions, revoking press badges from the White House. I just don't understand how you have this guy
None of
and you
that-
say this is what.
Not one of those things that you mentioned is a threat to the First Amendment.
What does the First Amendment mean to you?
It means that the government has no right to restrict what
And
I
who is
say.
Trump?
But how is he restricted anyway?
Trump. First of all, he
But
revoked.
can I stop you for 1 second? One of the frustrating things about this is that Donald Trump is a great big American character with great big American flaws, and I get it, and I understand, and I don't want to sit here and defend flaws, and I understand we could go back and forth. The important thing is the policy and the philosophy of the administration that's going on, and that's the sort of thing that never gets talked about. You say Trump said this, and I get it. I'm not going to argue with you. He's got a big mouth. But I could go back to with Biden, 47 years of venality and stupidity and lies. I could go back we could go back and forth with that. But where does that get us? The question is, do we believe in constitutional governance? And do we believe in individual freedom? And everything that the government does when it expands diminishes individual freedom. And so what I'm looking at is a guy, for instance, and again, this is not about Trump's character, and that's not about Biden's character. We had this massive crisis, this Chinese flu. I remember Rahm Emanuel saying, never let a crisis go to waste, meaning this is a good time to scare people into having big government. Donald Trump has resisted every call for a federal program or a new federal bureaucracy to deal with this.
And watched 250,000 Americans, disproportionately black, mind you, die as a result of it. Do you think that's a champion? Do you think that's a positive thing?
That is not why they died. And 40% of them died in Democrat states run by governors who put people into rest homes.
If only we had a head executive that maybe could have stopped that. They might have been in Democrat states, but they're in a Republican-ran country. Donald Trump is the chief executive. Why does he have no responsibility for anything?
I'm not saying he has no responsibility for anything. He didn't do any. He's not a disease.
He didn't do anything. I agree. That's his main criticism, is that he did nothing. He sat by and he watched the country burn.
Hear me out. So, like, at least we're arguing about the same thing.
The liberals burned it.
Here it is.
Under Trump's watch.
Wait.
Okay, so as a small business owner myself, and somebody with a little bit of corporate and business experience, it drives me crazy because you guys had Trump come in with this whole slogan about he's going to run things like a business, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know how many of you guys have business experience, but if you're a supervisor and your manager comes down on you and he says, hey, what's going on here? If you start pointing out employees that messed up, like, oh, well, that guy messed up, that guy, you're going to get fired. It's your job as a supervisor to manage your workers.
Exactly.
So why is it that Trump came in?
So we can say that the governors for each individual states had the obligation to manage that state, which they didn't.
And who is their boss?
So when Trump came in and said, hey, we need to employ federal troops into each individual states that liberals, mind you, left-wing white kids were destroying, they said, no, we don't want your help.
I'm not talking about the BLM protest that killed a dozen people.
I'm talking
about the coronavirus that killed 250,000 plus Americans. That's what I'm talking about right now.
The CDC updated the website and said the majority of the people who died from coronavirus had 2 or 3 major pre-existing conditions which contributed to their deaths.
Which is all the more reason why we should have been more careful.
Let's not even talk about
all the more reason why we should have been more careful about it.
Let's not even talk about the mismanagement of the virus. Okay, people are getting killed. I had a guy get shot, gunshot wound to the chest. He died from coronavirus. How is that even plausible? Car accident, coronavirus. How is that plausible? So let's talk about the amount of misinformation that we're getting from every facet of government organizations, including the CDC and every single hospital that has been lying, because you get $35,000 per bed, $15,000 per respirator, and people are dying from gunshot wounds to the chest, domestic violence, alcohol-related incidents. We get gunshot violence.
So do you think the majority of the coronavirus deaths are fake in the United States? Is that what you're saying? I want to hear answer that. Do you think the majority of those deaths are fake?
The majority of the people who have died from the coronavirus is not reflective of what they've been talking about.
What is it reflective of?
It's reflective of misinformation to scare
What kind of
people.
misinformation?
Let me ask you a question. How come they never talk about the recovery rate?
We're not talking
99.9% recovery rate, right? 99.9 or say 200,000 people did die, 99.8% recovery rate, right? A contraction rate of 0.00178. They never talk about that. They just, oh, this many people died, this many people contracted it, this many people died, but they never talk about pre-existing conditions. Why? Because they want to scare you into wearing all of these things.
Do you think America is the only country with citizens that have pre-existing conditions for coronavirus? Why is it that when we look at other states, like if we look at other countries like Australia or New Zealand or South Korea or Vietnam, I don't understand we can make so many excuses.
Right?
Hold on.
Where's your face mask?
Students.
The Middle East been wearing face masks since Jesus Christ is walking this earth, right? But they still have.
For the record, I was the only person here that came in with a face mask. So
Because
don't
you
even
were-
start,
you were the
okay?
only
I took it off to be nice on stage because we've all seen each other. I figured we're safe.
Okay, you got, hey, let you do it. Just for the record, you're not the only one.
Okay, sure. Of these guys, maybe
No,
they walked in wearing it.
your
but sure.
girlfriend wore one.
Okay, thank
She
you.
wore a mask.
Okay, thank you.
She's like,
John,
I don't understand why Republicans.
So let me do this.
I don't understand why conservatives say that America
Let me
can do
do
the
this.
best, America can do the greatest things, we can accomplish all these things. But when it comes to the coronavirus, it's just a huge box of excuses for our massive ineptitude after ineptitude for dealing with this virus. Either the stats are fake, we're the only people.
Biden is the best presidential candidate, knowing that one, he has a mental degenerative disease right now, and two, he has created the the policy that encouraged the mass incarceration of blacks and Latinos. 338 pages of it, which gave block grants and cash incentive to states that throw people in prison for accusations of a
You mean
crime
that
without
same
even,
cr- that
without,
same
without
crime bill?
even having proof that a crime has been
That
committed.
same crime bill that was supported by black senators, by black leaders at the time in the entire country, in the 90s,
the
when
same
crime was at an
crime bill.
all-time violent
It
high.
was
That
not
same
at
crime.
an all-time high. It was at an
It was
all-time low.
out in the
Okay,
90s.
time
in the
out.
90s, that
Hey,
is
guys.
absolutely not
Attack black
true.
people.
Hey,
It's
Herb.
absolutely not true.
I need a bill.
Attack
I need
black
my
people.
little
And who
wacky.
wants to get rid of it now? Who won't acknowledge
do
it?
this.
Who's saying that the Central Park 5 kids should have been hung
person who don't
after
wanna
they were
get rid of it-
exonerated?
the
That
person
was
who don't
Donald
wanna get rid
Trump,
of the
not Joe
crime
Biden.
It's Joe Biden and people like
Shut
him.
up. Excuse me. Peace
What
in the
are you
middle.
talking about? What do you think I'm
Hold
lying
on,
about?
hold on. No.
It's not.
Don't argue with the audience yet.
I think I know
Hold
who
on, guys.
we're talking about. We can talk about the 94 crime bill all day long. Sorry. I'm sorry.
The president, can you hear me out there? Oh, the president is so tough, he conquered the Chinese virus. He conquered
Just had a record number of cases
He
reported
like,
yesterday. Jess. You're
he
killing
like,
me.
amazing. So let me ask, are you paying attention to politics at all? Yeah, I am. Oh, you do? Yeah. So a lot of people are saying that Joe Biden is winning. The polls are saying that the same thing they did with Lion Crook and Hillary.
Yeah.
They're saying that Joe Biden is
Okay.
winning, but
Beautiful.
everybody and their mama showing up at the rallies for Donald Trump, and nobody, maybe one or two people in a truck, show up for Joe Biden.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, when it comes to statistics, you could also screw the statistics to have it see like whatever you want to see. You know what I mean? Like, if I take a survey in this room and I say how many people in here are for Donald Trump or Joe Biden, obviously it's going to be for Donald Trump. Then I'll come out with a poll and say, oh, Trump is winning.
Right.
So it's just a concentrated group of people that are going to take the polls. And like, is Donald Trump's people polling at all?
So
Do we
you
know that?
believe what you hear, that is Joe Biden over Trump?
I really don't believe anything that the news says.
Oh, I
to
don't
be
believe
honest, like, I mean, it's just like it's statistics.
Yeah.
You know, it could always be misconstrued.
Do you believe the post that Joe Biden is winning over Trump?
No.
You know, and why not?
Because the polls lied about Hillary Clinton. And then, you know, they came out with a survey that said, well, the question they asked was, do you answer questions to get the answer that you want? And the answer was yes. So, you know.
Yeah. How about you? Do you believe the post that Joe Biden is beating out Trump?
Absolutely. For anybody that
What
doesn't
the-
believe me, hey, if anybody wants to, if you guys are so confident, I'll give you 2-to-1 on your money, $20, $100, whoever wants to bet, I'll gladly do it. Gentlemen in the back, talk to me after and we'll do it. Anybody that wants to bet on it, 100% I'll bet on it. If you're so confident that the polls are wrong, put $20 on it. Sure.
Andrew, do you believe that Joe Biden is beating out Trump right now?
I don't believe it's anywhere near what the polls are saying. I have to tell you, what you mentioned is what is really confusing me. The polls, see, I'm a little bit gun-shy because I believed that the polls were wrong about Obama in his re-election, and he won. And he won according to pretty much what the polls said. The polls were wrong about Hillary Clinton, but only because they were looking in all the wrong places. Their methods were still good. What I think has happened now is we've got a press that is completely corrupt. I've never seen. I was a reporter. I started out as a newspaperman. I started out as a newspaperman in a small town with some guys who went on to become some of the biggest newspapermen in the country. Back then, liberal reporters would yell at you if you were too liberal. They would yell at you if you were biased. Our newspapers, our TV stations are lying. They lie, and they lie to support Democrat policies. And so it's really, really difficult to know where the truth lies. I see the same thing you see. I see Joe Biden, who does have a degenerative mental disease. You can see it. If you just go back 4 years and look at an old YouTube video and look at him now, something terrible is happening to the guy. If I were Joe Biden, I would get him off the campaign trail.
I'm surprised his wife would do that.
I feel the same way. But I have to say, I'm nervous.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I believed the evidence in my own eyes, but I am nervous because I was wrong about the polls in Obama's re-election.
Oh, okay. The first time around, you and I, did we bet each other? Do you owe me a lunch?
No. I would take, because you're you, I would take you to lunch, but.
That's Ben Shapiro owed me lunch.
Oh, Shapiro lost thousands of dollars.
So now he can't afford to take me to lunch.
They told us on the Daily Wire election coverage night, they said, no predictions. And I thought, yeah, because Shapiro doesn't want to lose any more money.
That's right. So the Rashman poll report shows that black support for President Trump is 31%, just 5 days before the election. And good news, just before I left home this afternoon, I heard that Lil Wayne is supporting the president now. I just finished having lunch with the president. I'm like, what the? What do you think about that? The black people loving Donald Trump.
I'm going to be totally honest with you. I'm not black. Just want to get that out of the way. But I'm pretty sure that the lived experience right now of Lil Wayne is probably not in line with the average black American.
Why you
My
think
guess.
that?
I'm guessing the average black American is not a millionaire rapper that lives like an upper class lifestyle.
But they feel like one when they see him.
Yeah, but I don't think you feel like one when you go home at night and you can't put food on the table, you can't pay your bills, you have a
But
shit
you
job or
also
no
have
job.
those other black guy rappers coming out, 50 Cent.
Yeah, that say that they don't want to pay higher taxes.
But they're supporting the president.
Yeah, because they don't want to pay higher taxes. These guys are millionaires.
Does that make you nervous knowing that 31% of blacks are now supporting him?
I'm not, no matter what happens this election, I'm fine. Either Biden wins and I get to gloat, or Trump wins and I save more on my taxes than most Republicans make in a year. So, I mean, either way, it's a win-win for me. I don't care. If you guys want to vote for people like me to have tax cuts while your kids can't go to good schools, I mean, hey, that's on you. I don't really care at the end of the day.
White
right?
privilege.
Yeah, call you.
Smart
call it what I see,
investments.
yeah.
And so you don't believe the polls, or you do believe them?
I think the polls are pretty on. I think the polls were pretty on in 2016. A lot
About
of people
the-
don't know that.
about
I think
the
a lot of-
blacks?
Yeah, sure. The polls say, yeah, I believe it. People do a lot of work for that stuff. And it's
Does
a
that
job, right?
make
Just get
you
the polls right.
sweat knowing that black people support the Republicans?
Not. I mean, a lot of people in this country support a lot of people. People can support whoever they want to support.
But normally you don't get that many blacks, right?
I mean,
For
it's
the
a
Republicans.
Rasmussen poll, so I'd have to look at like an aggregate of other polls as well. But I mean, black
Amazing.
unemployment was low under Trump, right? That's the single stat that he wheels out over and over and over again to brag about what he's done for black communities. So
Amazing. Do you believe the polls at 31%?
No, I don't. I think it should be a little higher because there's a lot of black people that support President Trump, especially like that come into my office in the inner city. So
Yeah.
I can't think that the polls are correct. It should be up a little bit more, but we'll see what happens when the election comes around.
They're afraid to tell it because not only will they hear it from their family members, they'll be attacked by other black people if they say, I'm voting for Donald Trump. Is that true?
I don't
You
know.
agree with that?
Yeah.
And why do you agree with it?
Well, it's because we never had the freedom to think,
Yeah.
outside of like, like say if, because I don't really support anybody, but I just put the truth out there. So if I put up a post on Facebook about Trump, it's like, you're a Trump supporter. I'm like, nah, it's just the truth, and I talk about Biden and his crime bill, how like, thousands, I'm not sure, but a lot of minorities got incarcerated due to his 1994 crime bill, and that is a fact. And if I put out that fact, it's like, oh, you're for Donald Trump, or you're for this, or you're for that. But it's like I'm really an independent, and I just press the truth, But then it's just like, if I was for Donald Trump, what's wrong with that? There's people that don't talk to their family members over it, and it's just like, I just really don't like the way black people are just like forced to vote Democrat. I feel like we should be free enough, which we are, to like think how we want to think, vote for whoever we want to vote for and go from that. Because it's like Lil Wayne, you just mentioned him. Now that he's endorsed Trump, which he really endorsed the Platinum Plan, and Trump is the only president to ever have a plan for black people, period. So it's like, is he really endorsing Trump, or is he like, man, he has something in it for me? I never even got this from a black president who's been president for 8 years. Because I remember the exact moment when they said that Barack Obama would be president. I was living. I'm like, damn, okay, something's about to happen. Nothing happened. And so now that Trump has a platinum plan, and it's like, even if he's lying or whatever, if he, nobody knows what's to come. But at least we have something to hold him accountable to.
Yeah.
And if black people want to support that, then I don't feel like there's nothing wrong with it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, a lot of blacks are afraid to say that they vote for Donald Trump. Not only will they be attacked by Antifa and Black Lives Matter, but their own family members would. Some family members would attack them. Do you believe the polls when it says that 31%?
I'm with Joe. I think it's higher. Since I talked about where I was wrong before, I predicted this almost immediately after Trump's election. I said that, you know, I don't think black people tell their mothers that they're going to vote for Trump. I really don't. And the smartest thing that Donald Trump ever said was when he turned to the black audience and what he had got to lose. Because all this talk about what's happening, the lived experience of black people in poverty, and there are bad outcomes in black communities, that's been going on under Democrat governance and with Democrat programs in place. And when you go back and look at the history of the black rising to the middle class, it sped up with the passage of the Civil Rights Act and then fell down dead with the passage of the Great Society programs that financed basically illegitimacy, which is one of the biggest problems in all poor communities. And
What do you mean by illegitimacy?
people being born without, being raised without fathers.
Okay, so the welfare system.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, the welfare system paid for that. It also creates a terrible dependency, a sense that I can get by without having to do anything. And it is a huge, huge source of money and patronage to the Democrat Party. And so that's why nobody ever talks about it. Nobody ever argues about it. Everybody says, well, if you don't think this is because of racism, you must be a racist. And I think, no, I just think these policies stink. I think this Great Society policies stink, and they have been a boot on the head of not just black people, but black people and poor people around the country.
That's one of the reasons that the Democratic Party are trying to draw the Hispanic into the party, because a lot of blacks are starting to leave it. They're starting to wake up.
Yeah, I think that's
They're starting small businesses, and they realize these taxes are out of the roof and through the roof, and it's hard for them, so they're becoming more educated as to what the Democratic Party is doing. That guy, the rapper that endorsed Donald Trump, what's his name? No, the other one,
50 Cent?
Ice-T.
Oh.
He said that he has some type of plan. Ice-T?
Oh.
I knew it had something to do with ice. He said that ice water, ice tea, it doesn't matter. But he had a plan, as he said, for the black folks. He presented the plans to both parties, and the Democrats ignored it. The Republicans were the only one that responded to it. So that meant a lot to him, and I think to a lot of other black people.
The Great Society programs are just a font of money for the Democratic Party and patronage for the Democratic Party, and they don't want to let them go.
What do you think happened to black people that they? What do you think happened to black? Who yelled at me? You're fired. What do you think happened to black people that they stopped thinking for themselves, doing for themselves, and gave themselves over to the so-called black leaders and the white liberal leaders in the Democratic Party? It wasn't that way when I was growing up. It only happened when the Civil Rights Movement happened. What happened to them?
Well, what way was it when you were growing up?
We thought for ourselves. We did for ourselves. We did not have leaders.
That was
We
because
had
of segregation,
family.
though, right? You grew up
No, because of character. We got along with the white folks.
Come on, you grew up in Alabama.
I
right?
grew up in Alabama.
Alabama during the Jim Crow, right?
Yeah.
So say that's segregation. So I talk to a lot of elders, which are, you know, around your age in the 70s,
I'm not an
right?
elder.
Oh, well, let's just say.
I am living forever.
Well, let's just say, like, I'll speak to a few of them, and they'll say that it was better when things were segregated, and that's because we were forced to basically do for self.
Right.
You know, so it's like when segregation is over, and now instead of seeing like black banks in the neighborhoods and like a black club and all of this other stuff, you see corporate America just all inside of the inner city and inside of the neighborhoods. Back in the day, it's like if y'all want to eat, y'all have to come up with your own restaurant. And I feel like that's the difference between, like, you know, what
That
you
did
saw
help a
growing
lot,
up.
yeah.
But it's
But
that's
what I
it
want you
is.
to know is that we did hang out with other white people too, because all white people were not for the Jim Crow laws. That was done by the Democrats, and they didn't want black people in the party. At that time, most black people were Republicans. Even Martin Luther King and others were Republicans at the time they started this whole civil rights movement.
Right.
Let's just say it's civil rights, by the way. But they made a deal with the Democrats, the so-called black leadership. They said, the Democrats were like, okay, if you give us the blacks, we'll give them welfare. They will vote for us. And the black leadership said, okay, well, if you let us rule them, become their leaders, we have a deal. So they made the deal that the blacks will be the leaders of the folks, and the Democrats will own them. That's what happened.
But it's like with anything, if you create a dependency on somebody, they'll always be your master.
Absolutely.
You know,
That's
so
right.
it's like if whoever has the goal makes the rules, and if you're paying me, I'm gonna follow you.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like shit. If you black, it's
Did
hard
you
enough
say
to get.
shit?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, but you know,
Are you
like
a
if
millennial? Amazing.
yeah, I'm me. I'm sorry, but
That's all right. I'm used to it.
but it's like
Everywhere now.
but
you're
it's
right,
like it's
whoever
already
owns
it's already
value
tough
owns
if you're a black man in in America anyway. So it's like you kind of want something to lean back on because it's not guaranteed that you'll get a job here or a job there. You know, like you might get laid off. You're tired of dealing with this type of boss. You're being discriminated against. So it's like, okay, look, if y'all struggling or whatever, we're going to create something to give you while you're struggling. And this is during the time where like white people in America, they had homes, they had retirement. We couldn't even buy homes. We were redlined. We couldn't have.
Where you over in South Central, you couldn't buy homes?
I mean, but like say my grandfather.
Because
when he-
all my folks bought homes, they own land.
I'm talking
and when
about
they left Alabama,
generational
they
wealth.
went to Indiana,
Like,
bought more land.
you have to remember these homes, like say the homes that my grandparents bought in LA, it was built in 1925. And that's when it was like all white. Like in South Central, people are gang banging, killing each other.
Yeah.
That was all white back in the day.
Yeah.
So who bought the house in 1925? A white man. 20 years later, well, let's say 30 years later, my grandparents buy the house. So that's wealth transferred down.
Right.
And they might have sold the house and moved to Brentwood or something like that. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
So it's like they went from an apartment from their parents not having nothing to them now getting up on their feet, but they have to play catch up.
Really?
Yeah.
Y'all better buy some land right now, right?
We do
Because
have to-
interest rates today are 2.8%. Buy a house. And while the liberals are on the run, they're running away from the Chinese virus, go and buy the land, and when they come back, we'll own it. All right? Don't run. So, are you concerned about voter fraud? The Democrats want them to mail in their ballots. They want early voting and all this crap. Are you concerned about voter fraud?
As a candidate, no. And the reason why is because I got Democrats voting for me too. We've done a pretty good job of running a very solid campaign. We got a lot of support from everybody. I'll be concerned about voter fraud if I lose, and then I'll be like, it's voter fraud, and then we'll have to do a recount and pay for that. But for right now, no, I'm not worried about voter fraud. I can't worry about voter fraud. I have to worry about creating new voters, gaining more support, and getting more people to vote for me regardless of political party preference.
It's already being reported that people throwing ballots away. And
As long as they don't throw mine away, I don't care. Like, I just need the most numbers at the end of the day.
are you concerned about that, Dustin?
No, I'm not concerned about it. 'Cause I don't think any voter fraud happens in the United States in any measurable way.
Are you on hot? What's
In 2016, Trump put together a commission to look for voter fraud and election fraud in the United States, and he didn't find either. He disbanded it with no results.
No, they found some.
Nope, they didn't.
Didn't they find some voter fraud?
Recently, there were like 13 ballots that got tossed because they weren't filled out properly. But the
Recently?
idea, within the past few months, I think. I don't remember what state it was. But the idea that there's some
Are
like,
you in
widespread...
denial about this?
I'm not. Are you going to be in denial on election night if Democrats win the
I'm
House, the Senate, the executive branch? Right?
They're not.
What if they do, though? Do you think
They
it's going to be
won't.
If they do you think it's voter
They
fraud?
won't. There is no.
Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by
I'm
3
going to be
million votes.
dancing on the ceiling. Oh, what a feeling. We were dancing on the ceiling.
So what are you going to do if he doesn't win?
There
Because see,
is-
Trump doesn't have an answer either.
There
That's
is-
also a First Amendment
Because
issue
there
that
is
worries
no
me as
if. There is no if.
There is no if. It's
If
inconceivable to
the
you.
fraud had jumped, he wouldn't have broke his.
I hope you have a friend with you on election night, just in case.
Are you concerned about voter fraud?
Concerned, but not overly concerned.
And why not?
Because we always get overly panicked. It's a talking point every election, and it's never as bad. Sorry?
What?
It's never as bad as they say it is. I do think that the Democrats get a point on it every time, and I think that's probably going to happen again. But I'm pretty confident.
Didn't they have some type of elections, local elections in some of these states around town, around the country, and they had some issue with voter fraud?
No, there was voter fraud last time. There were people being bussed into various places, the same people being bussed into various places,
Yeah.
voting. But there always is voter fraud. But I'm just saying, if it's incredibly close, it's going to the courts anyway. you know, it's going to go to the courts, and then I kind of have confidence it'll be straightened out. I'm worried about it, but I'm not paralyzed with fear.
Why do you think the Democrats want early mail-in ballots
Because
as
they
opposed to the
cheat.
Republicans?
They cheat. I mean, you know,
They cheat.
the stories of Lyndon Johnson walking through graveyards, picking names off you know, and saying it's unfair if the dead don't get to vote.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that when you look at how we approach voting in the United States, the Republican chief operating procedure is to make as few people vote as possible. I always think it's interesting when Republicans talk about voting, they're always trying to restrict who can vote, whether it's voter ID, whether it's gerrymandering, whether it's restricting when we can mail in our votes, whether it's no absentee ballot voting, even if Trump himself or other military people relied on it. I think it's really interesting that Republicans' mode of operation here is always to get as few people voting as possible, and that's been the way that they've tried to
And
win
I'm in
narrow
favor of that as well. I'm in favor of people voting if they're responsible, if they know what they're doing. I think that we should restrict voters to people who pay taxes so they have some skin in the game. I don't think the idea that you need a driver's license, some ID to vote is voter restriction. I need ID to buy liquor, you know.
Buying liquor is not a constitutional right, and it's not a fundamental underpinning of our government, though. Whether or not you go out and buy liquor is inconsequential to the
That's
existence
all the
of
more
United
reason why you
States.
should need identification, why
Sure,
there should be security.
because it's a guaranteed right to. You need a really good reason to put a roadblock up between somebody that wants to exercise arguably the most important thing they can do in the United
It's
States, which
only
is
a
have a say.
guaranteed right for people who are citizens of the United States. That's all.
That's all I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about illegals voting. We can talk about that if you want. That's an interesting conversation
No,
topic.
we're gonna be talking about that all night here in California.
But yeah, I mean, voting is a really important thing. I don't think you need a really good reason to make somebody not vote, as everybody up here has already
They're
said.
not who they say they are.
Well, yeah, but that
That's a
just
good
doesn't
reason.
happen. There are ways to check and see when you
Yeah,
show
call
up at the
ID,
polls and you
it's the
vote.
same thing you do.
You give them your name, you give them your address, they cross you off the list, and you vote. It's a pretty easy thing. I think it's interesting when you say people that don't have jobs or people that don't pay taxes shouldn't vote. So are we talking about disproportionately black people and Hispanic people there that shouldn't be allowed
Why
to vote?
y'all always use black people?
Who do you think in the United States is less likely to hold a job
Don't
right
we
now?
have other races that?
It's
Sure,
about
but
to
when we're
go
talking
down.
about the most that are affected by poverty, don't virtue signal to me, Jesse. Come on, that's a liberal thing. Don't do that to me. When we're talking about the most disaffected people in the United States, we're usually talking about black people or Hispanic people.
But that's
Are
not
these the
true,
people that
though.
you? What do you mean that's not true?
Black people can go vote. They even send a bus for
They
you.
can. I was just responding to his point. About saying that people that don't pay taxes shouldn't vote. I
Let's
think it's
just use a
pretty
different
I see.
analogy. Let's use a different analogy. All right, don't stop talking about black people disproportionate, this, that, and the other, because the same Democrats that are talking about black people, are the same Democrats who said Trump was whistling to his people who lived up in the hills to come down and vote for him. So let's stop talking about black people, man. Talk about something else. Use a different type of analogy. Don't use Latinos either. He's getting pissed off right here. He's up on the seat say so much.
I mean, I don't really care how mad you get. Numbers are numbers. I mean, these are issues
that's
that we
not
have
numbers.
to talk about.
Okay,
They
all
are
right, let's talk
numbers,
about
they are.
numbers. How are black people 12% of the population in the United States, but they're the most disproportionate when it comes to voting?
What does that have to do with any of the points that I just said?
That means that black people cannot be the most people who don't vote because we don't even make up not even 20% of the population. We only make up 12% of the population. White people make up the majority of the population. So if we have a voter and 32% of the people came out to vote, black people only make up 12% of the population, that means the majority of people who did not vote are white. Next topic. Next topic.
You sound like Ben
It's
Shapiro.
like a stats 101 thing. So I don't know
You
if
said
I'm-
numbers. You said did you not say
Yeah,
numbers?
but numbers.
Oh, only numbers that matter to you. Okay, my bad. Only numbers that matter to you.
You
All right,
can
you
say
got
it don't
it.
matter to me, but when it comes to
Yeah,
Democratic
no,
Party,
you
the
said
black
numbers.
vote was incredibly
You
important
said
for who
numbers.
was going to be the nominee of the
You
Democratic
said
Party.
numbers.
Black people
You
came
said
out and they
numbers,
voted
and I
for Joe
gave
Biden.
you numbers.
You gave me absolute numbers.
You,
so
I
don't
gave
mean
you the
anything.
numbers that are
You gave
true.
me the
You meant the
absolute
numbers that only
They
matter
don't
to
mean
you.
anything.
Okay, the numbers that matter to you. Let's use that next time. Your opinionated numbers, not real numbers. The numbers that matter to you. That's what I'm
I'm talking
saying.
about the numbers that are important.
If you're talking about numbers that are important to
black people's
you.
electoral voices don't matter then because they're too
But
small
numbers
percentage of
that
the
matter to
population.
you. What I'm saying is we don't have a big say-so in who becomes the president. What you need to do, if you want to talk about numbers, encourage the majority of the white people who live in the United States to come out and vote. Don't say black people don't vote, Latinos don't vote. We don't hold the majority of the people in the United States. You just said that.
He gave the example that we should keep people without jobs from voting, and I said disproportionately that would impact black people and Hispanic people. I don't care about the
It
absolute
cannot
numbers of black people.
disproportionately impact black people. It disproportionately impacts white people because white people are the majority of the people who are in the United States.
Joe Frazier.
I'm glad
It's
that.
not how the numbers work.
Okay, you're right.
It's-
You're right. I just said you were right. What else you want from me? You were right.
Do you understand there's like a per capita stat and an absolute number?
I just said you were right. Next time.
Well, Joe, I'm glad you're here to understand the numbers. I'm black and slow. I would have missed the numbers.
I mean, I'm an
Intellectual people.
Black people vote don't matter, I guess.
Intellectual people.
That's not. Now you putting words in my
you said
mouth.
them
You sound like Joe Biden. Oh, if you ain't black, you gonna vote for Trump. Come on, man. That's what you
I'm
sound
running
like.
it down
Come
with your
on,
logic.
man.
If black
No,
people
no,
are 4%
no, no,
of the
no,
population,
no,
their
no,
vote
no,
doesn't
no,
matter.
no, no.
That's what you're saying. Those are just the numbers. That's
What
the
I'm
facts.
telling you is what you said was wrong. You hate to be wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Okay, Joe Biden's racist. Prove me wrong.
I'm not talking about Joe
That's
Biden
what I'm
being racist.
saying. You.
But hey, if he was
I
racist,
just
it
said.
wouldn't matter.
I
Black
just.
people are only 12% of the
I just
population,
said
so it
that you
doesn't
were
matter.
right. I
That's
said
fine.
you were right.
I know.
I said you were right. Okay.
All right.
Next
Do you
topic.
accept you're right? Do you
Yeah, because
accept
if
that?
you argue with an idiot, you make yourself look dumber arguing with the person who's dumb.
No.
Let's go. Next topic.
No. Destiny is smart. Leave that alone.
It is pretty smart. You talk
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Talking fast don't mean you smart. Doesn't mean you talk fast.
Intellectual.
Black people are only 12% of the population then, by your own words. Why should anybody appeal to their vote at all? Why does the Platinum Plan or any of Joe Biden's Black America plans matter? They're a minority
That's
of the population.
not what we're talking about.
No, but now we are
what
talking
you
about it,
said
so I'm
was
asking
black
you,
people
why does
were
it matter?
disproportionately zeroed out from voting. Black people only hold 12% of the vote. The reason why you want black people to vote is because if you don't vote, they're gonna tear your shit up. Have an agenda for black people, have an agenda for Latinos, have an agenda for Asians, have an agenda for people who came from other countries who are now citizens, have an agenda for white people, have an agenda for everybody. If you don't, then you're just blatantly either a racist or you just don't care about black people.
I agree. And I'm
Just
glad Joe
because-
Biden
just-
has a plan for all of those
Black
people.
people
Thank
don't-
you so
he
much.
don't got no damn plan for black people. His plan for black people is-
JoeBiden.com/Black America.
No,
Rather than you-
All right.
The only thing I want to see on Joe Biden's site is I'm repealing that crime bill because I still got family members that are in jail that are
You're not
innocent.
going to do that under Trump.
You-
Trump was still
Trump
supposed to
just
stop and
created
frisk.
That was not Trump. That was Rudy Giuliani.
And he support-
That was
Trump
Rudy
supports
Giuliani.
it. Trump
Listen, let me tell you
supports
something.
it.
Let me
Okay,
tell
hey.
you something. The crime bill disproportionately
This
affected
is
black
30
people.
years ago.
It's still effective today. So why hasn't he apologized?
So who's more likely to repeal it? Why didn't Trump repeal it?
I have an uncle that spent 12 years in jail, didn't do anything. I had an uncle that spent 23 years in jail, didn't do anything. I have another uncle that spent 8 years in jail, didn't do anything. You know why? Because the assumption of a crime committed, because that's what it says on page 198 of Joe Biden's crime bill, which you know all about.
Okay.
And what did Trump do for any of those people?
Trump created criminal justice for him. That's how I got them out of prison.
Amazing. So,
We're so mad about the 94 crime bill, but for some reason it's still there.
That's
I don't know.
'cause
We've
you're
had
not
4
black.
years. We've had 4 years. No, maybe why has nothing to do with it.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with
doesn't
it. We've
affect you.
had Trump for 4 years, and he hasn't done anything with it. And you know what? In another
Hey,
4
he
years, he's
absolutely-
not going to do anything
he
with it. Because what does
absolutely-
Trump do when it comes to
he
crime?
absolutely
What does
did.
Trump do when it comes to crime?
He got
supports
some of
things
them
like stop
out.
and frisk.
Real
He pardoned
crime. Real
Sheriff
crime.
Arpaio.
Real
People that
crime.
are... Yeah, okay, real
Real
crime. All right.
crime.
So whatever crime only matters to whatever talking point you have.
No,
with
no,
him.
no. It don't even matter
Hold on.
when it's real.
Hey,
It's not a
hey.
It doesn't matter when people assume a crime because you guys crime bill. Tell him to get his head out his ass. Repeal that crime bill.
Trump's had 4 years. He hasn't done it.
hold on, guys. Hold on.
Republican Senate and
So
House.
you started this by saying that. Are you white or are you Jewish?
I'm a Jew who became a Christian.
The Jews always start in trouble, huh? And then we have to sit back and fight it out. Do you want to clear that up a little bit, or?
No, what my point is simply that the right to vote, we've become more and more democratic, but the right to vote was supposed to be for people who have had something to lose in the government, they had money in the government. Now, most people pay taxes. Most people pay taxes somewhere along the line. And so that's not going to actually do it, Steve, is it what Steve was saying. It's not actually going to limit the black people. But, a majority of black people are in favor of photo IDs for voting.
Yeah.
It didn't stop any of them from turning out in places where there are photo IDs. This idea that that asking people to be responsible about their vote, which, as he says, is one of their most important, that's voter suppression. That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Why don't Republicans just issue? If you think that that's so important, then why don't Republicans, alongside these bills for having voter IDs being required, why don't they just provide a free, federally funded voter ID then?
fine with me, but
Yeah,
why?
they've never done it though. So it makes you wonder, why don't they do that?
But almost everybody has a.
Not almost everybody. Almost everybody's important, but I'm going to use this word to trigger it. Disproportionately, it's going to be lower income people that don't have access to those IDs. And if you look at states like North Carolina...
I got to move on because of time, really.
Okay, sorry.
I want to ask Sherman, I want to talk about the cops and the mobs, all right, mob justice. There's been rioting and looting, violence are taking place in Philadelphia even right now. And the cops are being shot at. They're running over cops with trucks and things like that. Black Lives Matter is behind all this, along with Antifa. What do you think about what's happening right now with cops and mob justice?
First, I would like to say that it's not Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is not a group, it's just a slogan. So
What?
before Black Lives Matter.
But don't let those fat
No,
black
I'm just
listeners
saying,
know that.
it's a slogan.
They
It's not a
saying
group. Like if Black Lives Matter is a group, where did they meet up at? Who's the organizer in each and every city? You know, there is not one.
But
Black
Patrice-
Lives Matter is just a slogan that just lets people know that Black Lives Matter. That's all it is. So say like
Patrice and all those women that are black fat radical lesbians, they're not real?
come on, man. No, I'm just saying, like,
Are you saying they're not real?
I mean, did they say, hey, you know, let's sum up the troops and let's go to Philadelphia and let's cause this havoc?
Well, I agree
No, they
that
didn't.
somebody is over there paying it and organizing it, but
that's
they
the-
are the head of it.
But I mean, this type of thing's been going on, like the 1992 riots. You know, like Black Lives Matter didn't exist then. Black Lives Matter didn't exist in 1965, the Watts riots. No, what it is, it's oppressed people that don't have a voice, that are getting stressed the fuck out. You know, they've been stressed out for centuries. They have PTSD, post-traumatic slave syndrome, and they just
What
have
the-
to. Yes.
I saw Patrice on the news
exists.
the other day. She didn't look like she was depressed.
No, I'm just saying.
Or
No, I'm not
oppressed
talking about
or
her.
hungry.
I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about people in those communities. Now they have an outlet to express their anger.
But how is this benefiting them? They're tearing down statues
does-
and
I mean, but
monuments
it's like- it's-
and flags.
it's people that
and
are stressed out,
killing
that
the
are
cops and all that.
oppressed.
How's that helping them?
What will help them is going through therapy and having opportunities.
Well, then
and-
everybody's gonna need therapy after this.
No, not everybody. It's those people that are in oppressed situations.
What?
Like if you oppress somebody for so long, and then like, okay, you know, a guy got shot by the police. Now I have something to be mad about. Now I could express my anger. That's all it is. It's like if
So
you're
there was
hungry.
this guy by the name of Walter. What was Walter named? Wallace. He was chasing the cop down the street with a knife, right? And he didn't seem to be oppressed. He seemed to be high or something. How do you explain that?
I wasn't there. I just saw a video. I don't know what happens, but I
He has a
guarantee
criminal
you
record. Law
that's
to y'all.
cool. But I guarantee you, if he was a white man, he would be alive today.
Because he would not have been chasing.
Period.
You
I've seen
think
the
that if
video.
that was a white man chasing the cop down the
Because
street
a
with
knife is not. I mean, you could run back. You don't have to kill somebody.
I don't agree with
you
that.
can run back.
I
What do you
mean, that's
mean?
cool. That's just what I believe. Because I've
What do you
seen
mean, run
videos.
back?
I've seen videos of white men with weapons that don't get killed. I have.
But I'm sure there's some
But
black
you are
women.
right though. A black man running towards the police with a knife to that police officer would be a threat. More of a threat than it would be if it was a white man.
So you support Black Lives Matter?
Oh man, Black Lives Matter again is not a group. It's just a saying.
It's
I do
absolutely
think.
an organization. And
Yeah, it's an organization.
I mean,
Black
but
Lives Matter LA have $3 million and all the money that they exploited from dead bodies, they have never gave anything to. I know because we had a lot of run-ins with them. But we chased them out of South Central LA. That's why you don't see them. we really did.
You didn't know it was an organization?
I mean, I just
not an
don't believe it's an organization.
You don't
I
believe?
just don't.
What do you think?
It's not.
I mean,
it's like
because-
anybody can throw a BLM march. If you
Yeah,
want to.
like,
You can go
it's-
do one if you want. You can call it BLM and they'll register it on the site and everything.
You don't believe it's an organization as well?
He's
You
absolutely
can register
right,
on the side. You can
100%.
register.
You
from
can
something
register
that's not
any
an
business name you want in any state you want. LLCs
that
are state
means
recognized
it's an
entities.
organization.
Anything can be an organization you want it to be. I'm an organization. It doesn't mean
an
anything.
organization.
But when people talk about
So it's
BLM,
BLM.
when people talk about BLM is a huge collection, tons of different people. You can't point to one guy running on a street with a
there's a
knife and say
bunch-
that's BLM.
Right, there are other people, working with them.
Not
But there
always. In
was
some places, just some college kids
I
together.
don't
and
know.
they're like,
I've
"We wanna have a
interviewed
little
them.
college."
I interviewed them.
That's
They're a
great.
bunch
You
of
have-
fat black radical
That's not
lesbians.
I don't think that's every BLM.
Lesbians!
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to characterize the entire movement and everybody that's out there rioting or protesting as being some fat, overprivileged black person.
No, I'm just talking
bullshit.
about the organizers.
Just BLM, not every
So there's
just
tens of
BLM.
millions of people that were protesting over cities over the past like 8 months. These are
They're
all
joining
just,
BLM. That's how they
Right.
raised $300 million for
Well,
your
how
guy.
do you join BLM?
You go to the website, just like he said,
And then just fill
Is
it
that like
out.
an email list or?
And then you tell them, I'll burn down this building.
That's what I'm saying.
Why
I
you go
mean,
next door?
It's not. I mean, I know.
So you don't know it's an organization?
No, it's not that I don't know. It's that I do not believe it's an organization. All it is just saying that Black Lives Matter.
Sometimes
What do you
it's
think about
hard
that,
to
Joe?
believe. The organization was created in 2013. And they've been around for a long time. They raised money, they organized protests. Now they're organizing riots because they got involved with Antifa and all these other organizations. I know because I've seen it. I went to Minneapolis after George Floyd died to protest against police brutality, and we saw the organization. We saw the people getting paid. We saw the trucks. We saw the cars. Even here in Los Angeles, we saw the same exact thing when they tried to burn down our police station on Imperial, and we chased them out of here. You know where they're from? Not L.A. They got paid to come out here.
If I were to have a BLM march right now, if I were to go outside, not
You got
right
to
now.
go to the website and
I
you
don't
have
have
to
to go to
register.
website though. If I were to say I'm going to have a Black Lives Matter march, I go on Facebook, I put together a group, and we all go out and do it. Is somebody going to sue me?
Yes.
No, they won't.
They're gonna
No,
say,
they
you know
won't.
what, we're gonna
No,
join
they'll
you.
kill
We're
him.
gonna pay
No,
you
they
to
can't sue.
join.
Also, if
No,
you
no,
watch
no.
any
They
video-
will
if you
kill
watch- if
you.
No one's going to kill you.
White
Maybe
people are
try
not
to-
allowed. No,
If
white
you
people are
were
not allowed to
if you
have
were to
a.
watch any of the 24 streams that we're running for all across all the cities in the U.S. for all these people, for all of the BLM and Antifa people protesting. Usually the BLM people were telling the Antifa people to am I allowed to swear here? To F off? Can I say that? Yeah, to fuck off. If you look at like any of these videos, usually it's
protests have you been to?
how many? I've watched a lot. I'm not going out there. I don't want to get
So you
sick.
didn't go. You just okay.
So you didn't go into one protest? Like you speak out about protesting all across the country?
I've been to a lot. I'm black.
Really, in every
I've
single
been to
city
a lot.
across the country. You were in Seattle, you were in
Yeah, I've been
Portland,
to-
you
I've
were
been
in
to
LA,
Seattle.
you were in
I've been to
Chicago, you were in
Seattle, I've been
DC,
to
you were in
Portland.
Baltimore, you were in
Yes,
Miami. No, you were not in
absolutely.
every single one of these protests.
Go
Don't
to my
pretend. That's not
website
true.
and go check and
That's not,
see.
I don't have to go to your website. I already
Oh,
know because I have to
he
show your
saw it on
thing.
the video. He didn't see me on the
No,
video.
because
That's why it
because
doesn't
you believe that
exist.
BLM is an organization that was
BLM
clearly
is
created.
absolutely an
It's a
organization.
slogan.
You just said you have to go register in order to
I
register.
just said that you don't have to
Tekashi
register.
6ix9ine had no organization, but yet he got hit on a federal charge for having an organization.
He can have an organization, but
So he
BLM
can
is
have an
not.
organization, but BLM can't, and they're organized.
Anybody can make if you guys
You're
want
right.
for $50, you can register an LLC and call it whatever the hell you want. You can do that. That's
And
your
you
right as an
also
American.
Go to the website and you
The
can
whole
register.
point-
And the website actually registers if you pay money, go to ActBlue, and they give all that money to Democrats, right? Because that's
If
what
you want to
organization
fundraise,
does.
but I don't know what that
but-
has to do with this.
but
If you
Joe,
want to have
Joe,
a black line,
Joe, that
listen, you guys
does
can try. I'll
exist.
pay your
I mean,
legal
we're not
fees.
saying that it
I will
doesn't
pay.
exist.
It's an organization.
But like both of you are right at the same time.
There can be organizations that call
He's
themselves
right.
BLM.
No, I mean both of you are right.
No,
Like,
he's right.
both of y'all are right.
I don't have to be right. He's right. He's the right. He's the
Yo,
right
Andrew,
guy. I'm on it right, but he is right.
Andrew,
Even
where
though
did
he's
this
left.
idea come from that Black Lives Matter is not an organization?
Well, I said that. when you asked me.
No, it's
Oh, you just made that up?
No,
he's
that's
correct.
just what I believe.
You smoke pot?
No, I don't. I don't smoke. I don't drink.
Well,
don't
I
do
got a
anything.
joint for you.
Nah, I don't.
Welcome to pot.
I just want to say a good word
Is
for
it
the,
an
I want
organ-
to say a good word for the police. I want to say a good word for the cops. This may be completely unpopular. I don't care. You know, by the time an event gets to the police officer, so many things have failed in society that he has got very few options. He's got the option. He's got to go home, get safe to his family. We sent him out there to do what he does.
Yeah.
And if there are failures, if there are social failures that are causing crime in certain communities, that's not on him. That's not something he created. It's like the vote. By the time it gets to the vote, you got two choices. You vote Democrat or you vote Republican or you throw your vote away. The cop is in the same situation. He is the last guy on the line of failure. And the fact that we have this idea that you defund the police or you even condemn the police for things that happen. Look, obviously bad cops and bad things happen. There's a city's worth of cops in this country. There's the population of San Francisco number of cops in this country. They're going to be bad guys in there. That's not the point. But the whole idea that they should be condemned en masse for dealing with problems that none of us, none of the rest of the population has to deal with. They are dealing with things in situations of danger. And when you hear guys like Joe Biden say idiotic stuff like shoot him in the leg, which makes me feel like he's actually never handled a firearm before. I mean, that's leaving those guys out there, or saying that a knife isn't as dangerous as a gun. And in close quarters, a knife is more dangerous than a gun. I mean, a knife is a dangerous weapon. Yeah. And so I just think we just leave them out there alone, and then sort of ask them to act like social workers, which they're not.
just to show you how serious a knife is, over in France yesterday, some guy went into a church and cut off a person's head with a
I
knife.
never said a knife is
I rest
serious.
my case.
I'm just
Wait a second. When that guy walked into the Christchurch mosque, how many people did he kill?
I don't know, but I just know about the one
In
that
the
did
Vegas shooter, how many people did he kill? The
No,
Miami
we talk
knife, how
about
many
with
people
a
did he kill?
knife.
Yeah, but
There's a
I'm
reason
just saying,
why
like,
people-
from what I seen with the on the video, it just looked like they were a distance apart. Like that's what I'm saying. It's
When
not
you
like
have a
they
knife
were-
coming
he
after
wasn't
you, there's no distance.
I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
So should they be designated, Black Lives Matter, a terrorist organization?
Should they be designated a terrorist organization?
Yes.
That's a little tough. No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say
What?
that. But no, because
What do you need?
they are a Marxist organization.
Yeah.
And they certainly are. You go on their website, and the stuff they say, they've taken some of it down, but it's actually radical, terrible stuff that would enslave people, would bring down our economy, bring down our society. So, yeah, they're definitely an organization. They're definitely a Marxist organization. They're definitely bad guys. Terrorists, I don't know. Are they blowing things up? Maybe some of them are. Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them. As a matter of fact, they're thinking that next week they're going to have another mob attack. And so they started to board up businesses in Washington, D.C., even in Beverly Hills. They're boarding up businesses. But the mayor said the other day, they are not going to cross the line into Beverly Hills. And so they better watch out if they go to Beverly Hills.
That's interesting. It's
Yeah.
about time.
Yeah, it is. Should they be designated a terrorist organization?
No, because they're not an organization.
Amazing. What do you say?
I'm not 100% sure, and the reason why is because when we seen him, it wasn't Black Lives Matter that was destroying stuff. It was the people who were infiltrating Black Lives Matter. Now, if you have to turn to an organization to dissuade people from destroying things, then absolutely. But you know, at the end of the day, it wasn't Black Lives Matter that was tearing up stuff.
But if
organized
they
this
were
march.
not out there doing what they were doing, would those people have been there?
Protesting is a right that the
That wasn't
Constitution
protesting.
grants.
They were burning, robbing. They were stealing refrigerators. How do you steal a refrigerator?
But that
And
doesn't.
what that have? They didn't
doesn't-
have food to put in the refrigerator.
That doesn't designate a terrorist organization, though.
But they
stealing
were
things.
killing and running over cops and everything.
Then they need to get penalized. But a terrorist organization would be like Antifa. That's a terrorist organization.
Oh, you might. Yeah.
That's a terror. Like Antifa
So
would
you
be a
said
terrorist
no, they
organization.
should not be.
I would say it's debatable.
Oh, okay. What do you say? As if I don't know.
Yeah, no. Of course not. Why would you designate a terrorist organization for people that protest? The vast majority of BLM protesters and even Antifa protesters are peaceful protesters.
Should they be designated a terrorist organization?
No, of course not. Because Antifa is as much an organization as BLM is.
They're not an organization either.
Nope.
How about Antifa?
Yes, absolutely. Antifa needs to go.
Should they be designated a terrorist group?
Yes, they should.
Are you familiar with Antifa?
I mean, I tried to look them up, but there's not much out there besides like what I hear from
They're a
Trump
bunch of
and
white
whoever.
people that wear masks.
Well, if you go to
I mean,
Antifa.com
but that's what
and
I'm
take
saying,
to Joe
like-
Biden's site. That's
Like when I looked them up, I was kind of like confused on what they are about, who
Yeah.
it is, who's the leader, where. Well, that's what I mean. Like when we talk about organizations like the SCLC, like, you know, there's a leader, there's somebody that takes charge. They have meetings, you know? So it's like, those are organizations to me.
Okay.
But like Black Lives Matter, you saying like, okay, you know, the person ran the police over. That could have been an individual that was just mad, just trying to do something, you know? You
But
don't know
the
that they're a part of Black Lives Matter at all.
But they were out there with them.
There, black people have been protesting in every major city, like for like the past century.
Amazing.
That's not all that. Then they were not Black Lives Matter. If
How
something
about-
happens to a black individual where they feel like it's injustice, it will cause a protest. That'll more than likely cause a riot. Have you ever been to a protest like before the cameras and you know all this social media stuff back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, people are crazy and they're mad and they want to find a way to like, you know, expound their anger.
I
So-
remember once we had a protest up in West LA at the Federal Building. We wanted to shut down the borders and keep the illegals out. And the Mexicans came. And they had bricks and they had frozen Coke cans and they were throwing them at us and they were violent.
Right. Well, that's what
But now the
happened.
Mexicans are my friends. Hola. Come and see ya. So one quick question. Should Antifa be considered a terrorist.
They're fascist street thugs. They're Antifa. You know, FA stands for fascist and anti stands for nothing. They're fascist street thugs. I don't know if that's a terrorist organization, Jesse. I mean, again, are they plotting? You know,
What else do they need to know for you to know that they are terrorists? What else do they need to do?
Are they plotting? You know, paramilitary attacks on the country?
I wouldn't take that risk with them.
Yeah, but you'd have to do something before you call them terrorists, right?
What's the definition? I rest my case.
Technically, we're going legally. There is no such thing as a domestic terrorist designation by the
Well,
FBI.
what
It
I-
has to be a foreign designation.
Well,
That's
two-
just a fact. Even the KKK is not a terrorist organization. That's just not how we view them in the United States.
Yeah.
When I joined the military, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. So therefore, according to that oath, there has to be some type of domestic terrorist organization, or we wouldn't have to take an oath to it in the military. So, that's all
Two
I'm saying.
things I will be doing when I become president. Number one, you can't vote unless you own land. You like that, right?
Nobody's voting.
And number two, Antifa and Black Lives Matter would be designated a terrorist organization. Great black hope. So real fast, then I got to go to the audience until wound it up. This woman, Amy Barrett, she's now on the Supreme Court. She's already excluded herself from the court cases about this, the ballot things and what we're doing now. Was that a good choice for the president?
Oh, she looks great. Yeah, I mean, she's an originalist, which is what I agree with. And people call themselves originalists, but she actually is one, like Scalia was. And Scalia was a great justice. It's an important appointment because it means that Clarence Thomas, who was the most brilliant jurist in the country, that Clarence Thomas will be able to assign cases when John Roberts is on the minority. Yeah. So in other words, now we've got an actual conservative majority for the first time, and it makes a huge difference. She seems to be brilliant. She seems to be decent, and I think she's a terrific choice. We wanted her on the last time. You know, we were kind of all at the Daily Wire. We were rooting for her last time, but we've got another shot, and I'm very thrilled.
What do you say? Was that a good choice?
I mean, honestly, I just researched her today. She looks like a very fair woman. She's putting her Catholic beliefs like to the side, and she's like sworn to, you know, uphold the Constitution. I really think that it is unfair that people are using her being a Catholic against her and her personal views against Roe versus Wade. You know, I feel like that's very unfair because we all have freedom of religion. But she did say that she's going to set that aside and just like enforce the Constitution, and her personal beliefs are her personal beliefs.
Was that a good choice?
Yeah, it was a pretty good choice.
How about you?
You know, I'm still a little upset that Garland got cheated out of his nomination, but I mean, if you're a Republican, yeah, she's a good choice. I mean, obviously, I disagree with her.
One last quick yes or no. Does it bother you that she is married with 7 children and she's out playing man, trying to be a man, instead of being home with her husband and children, watching over his kids? And the fact that she said that when asked about George Floyd, she said, oh yeah, I felt bad because I have 2 black kids and I just wanted to cry with them. And her kids are from another country. Don't even know George Floyd, never heard of George Floyd. Does that bother you? That here's a woman that's supposed to be a wife and a mother, and she's at work playing man, and the man at home being the wife. Does that bother you?
Is it a real question?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother you? Does it bother you?
No, it doesn't.
Well, you should say it doesn't because we got to vote for you next week.
I'll say it doesn't bother. This is America, right? You know,
You
like,
can tell me later.
It ain't gonna bother me then either. I'm not gonna lose sleep over that.
That's right. Does it bother you?
No.
You wouldn't be bothered if you gave your wife 7 babies and she went to work and left you at home?
I mean, but then it's like you don't know their personal situation. You don't know if her mom lives with her taking care of the kids. You don't know anything.
That's even
So
worse.
it's easy. No, it's not. The grandmothers will be a good way to take care of the kids. Like, you don't know their personal situation.
Andrew, does that bother you?
You always get me in these situations because I'm the guy who's going to put his foot in his mouth. And because here's what I think. I think for me, I'm thrilled she's on the court. However, I do think that if you have little children at home, at preschool age,
I rest my case. I knew I was right.
I'm sleeping here tonight.
That's right. Beaters! Okay, so now we got to go to the audience, all right? Right? What? Oh, anybody need to use the bathroom? We need to do something with the cameras too, right? Go to the bathroom when you got to go. Am I wrong that the mother should be home with the children? Oh, see that? Yeah. What'd you say to me? We just need to shoot something. All right. Hold on.
That was okay. no good right now. I see people die even after our site. It's really shitty. They're killed by the anti-spectator thing, even though there's not supposed to be any left. Basically, 01 dies and they rush in to get the bag and plop, plop, they're dead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thing over? No, it's not over yet. Sorry, talking about the video I was watching. Okay, shot. Save. Man, I mean, imagine doing this with a melee. I couldn't. I always bring my ranged classes. Farm and Oryx in general. This is so scary. Ugh. This part. So hard. Blue and yellow.
Questions? The young lady over here first, and then this young man.
Okay, so I have a question for the YouTuber, Mr. Destiny. My question is, since you believe that that like Black Lives
Say no
Matter,
voice.
since you believe that like Black Lives Matter and the organization is like cool and all, my question is, do you believe that what happened to Jacob Blake was, do you think it was called for or uncalled for? Because I believe that it was called for because he also had did things in his past as penetrating a woman's vagina open, and that doesn't sound very human-like. It wasn't appropriate.
So I'm not as up to date on like the specifics of the Jacob Blake thing, but I can support like the broad idea of a movement without supporting every single individual pick that a group of people decide to represent. I think that for better or for worse, I think that sometimes BLM tends to pick some people that they want to kind of champion or martyr that I don't think are the best picks. I try to focus on the overall message rather than defending every single individual case then.
Hello. Thank you. Jesse, thank you for everything. And I just want to ask, maybe Joe could answer. I have 2 kids, and with the vaccine, and with all the numbers you described and everything, how would you recommend or advise someone to approach, vaccines with their kids? Because the schools are talking about testing. We're in the LA school district, so they're trying to test everyone. And I tell my wife, we need to stay out of all this as much as possible because it's gonna cause problems. It's a 12-week testing. The kids could have no symptoms, and I could be, taken out of work. My wife could be taken out of work. There's so many repercussions from what could happen, and I don't know if that's the best route to go right now. It doesn't seem like there's any real payoff. And then with the facts about the numbers, it just seems like where do I draw the line as a father? And I'm real confused and kind of lost on this.
Which was that right here? Oh yeah, okay.
I'll tell you this. As a father, my best guess to you, because I can't tell you what to do with your children, is just do research on a vaccine. If you feel like the vaccine is safe, then go for it. If not, then don't use it. I'm not pro-vaccination. I don't vaccinate my children, so it's just whatever you feel as a parent is best.
But California is a mandatory state, So is there any way
Sue,
to battle this?
Sue, for your constitutional rights, it's your child. It's your right to vaccinate or not vaccinate. See, the Constitution was put in place to allow you to live your life without the influence of the government. So anytime the government makes a mandate for you to do something, you always have the option to go to federal court and sue so you can protect your rights, protect yourself and your children.
You disagree with that? Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, I would want my kid to go to school knowing that he was protected from somebody carrying diseases that could be prevented by vaccines. I don't feel like I live in a free country if my kid gets some debilitating illness that could have been prevented by a vaccine. That's not freedom to me.
Should they force the parents to do it?
Absolutely. It's about keeping our children safe.
They're doing it now already.
Do you think they should force
That,
it?
it's
No,
not,
they
it's
are
not,
forcing it.
it's not freedom.
They are forcing it now.
I said, should they though?
They are, so,
I know they are. But
yeah.
They should force it.
oh, should they force it?
I mean, no, I do feel like it should be you should be able to make that decision.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a health decision and it's your body. I was never vaccinated
Right.
as a child. But
Vaccines are literally the single most important improvement that we've made in public health over the past, like, sanitary.
I
okay?
think that since you're
Like,
the one with the problem, you keep your kids out of school so everybody else can enjoy the freedom of going to school.
I think America already has enough of an education problem without just arbitrarily pulling people out of
Just
school
like
because we can't vaccinate like every
Just like
other
America,
first world
America
country
already
in the
has a
world
problem with
figured out.
forcing other people's opinions on everybody else and making that a norm. If you don't want your kids to be vaccinated, don't vaccinate your kids. If you want your kids to be vaccinated, vaccinate your kids, but don't inhibit everybody else's rights just because you feel uncomfortable with some type of decision. Keep your kids out of school.
I
Period.
cannot believe that as an American, I have to
cannot
sit up
believe
here and
that
share
you
a
want
stage with
everybody's
somebody
kid to
that's
be
running for
vaccinated just
Congress
because
that
your
doesn't
kid-
understand how important vaccines
It's
are.
not about
That
the
is
importance of
absolutely
vaccination,
fucking
about the importance
embarrassing
of
to me.
freedom. This is
that
America.
When I turn on my channel,
Keep
I have
your kid
Europeans
in
in
the
chat
house.
that are going to ask me, do Americans really debate vaccines? I can't even believe that.
Keep
Well, you
your
should
kid
care
in
if you
the
want your
house.
kids to be healthy. If you want your kids to
Keep
not be
your
dying
child
of
in the
preventable
house.
diseases, I think it's a pretty important thing.
Andrew, what do you say? What do you say to that? Should they be forced to do it? The
No,
parents?
no, I'm pro-vaccine, but they shouldn't be forced. And I lived in Europe for 7 years, and they're not free the way we are.
I just want to say, I'm talking specifically about COVID vaccine. Just based
Right.
on the numbers and everything, it's not it seems like it's not going to benefit. It might cause harm, and we don't know what's going to be the long-term effects of it. So how are we supposed to just trust, they're going to push it globally, nationwide. So where's where do the people get to stand up? That's what I want to know. When's the fight going to come? Because it seems like everyone's just ready to take it. And not everyone, of course, but and that's what the media is pushing too. So I just don't see where my feet to stand on are,
Well,
to
already gave
defend
it
my
to you.
kids.
Like, you have to read the Constitution and stand on
No, but
your
you guys are all talking about
constitutional
general
rights.
vaccinations. I'm not
No, but that's
full board,
it
not
goes
against.
back to
I'm
the
talking about
Chinese-
COVID.
Yeah, it still
If
goes
it's a
back to
fake,
what he said.
if they're pushing fake news everywhere, then how are we supposed to trust anything that they come with a vaccine?
Andrew, what did you say about that? You
Thank
said
you.
that he should do it or should not?
Frankly, with this, I don't want to tell you what to do with your kids. I'm just talking about what I would do in that
Yeah.
situation. I think, I'm not sure I would get my kids vaccinated against this disease, which doesn't seem to do much to children. I mean,
One thing that we do know about the coronavirus is that people that are affected by it have a chance to have long-term cognitive impairment. That's something that we've seen in every single country. There are studies on it now where people have brain problems months and months after passing this virus, even once they've gotten better, even if they are part of the 99.9%.
That's what happened to Joe Biden.
I can't imagine. Remember when Trump could barely raise a glass of water to his mouth, or he had to do a 3-minute speech about some general walking him down a ramp
Hillary
because he needed to be
Clinton,
wheeled
remember?
off?
Hillary Clinton, same thing, she passed
do you
out.
remember when Hillary Clinton was on the verge of death because she was coughing up mucus and she's still alive and kicking?
Did she
Hillary's
have the
fine,
Chinese
okay?
virus?
Well, I don't think she does. It
Exactly,
seems like
right?
it
They're all fine.
infects Republicans more than Democrats for some reason. I was curious how that works, huh?
Crazy because Joe Biden still has his brain degenerative
other
disease from
question?
COVID-19.
And he's still going to win by 10 points.
Okay.
Who's going to win, Trump?
Biden is going to win by 10 points.
If he don't make it,
Okay.
All right, so as a Mexican dude who came out in support of Trump, I just want to ask each of you what your take is on this. But it seems to me like whenever I just say, hey, I'm for Trump, there's always a white guy who needs to tell me, hey, you're wrong, man, let me save you. So what's up with that, man? Like,
You white.
I mean, I'll tell you you're wrong, but it's not because you're Mexican. I don't care what color you are. I don't think anybody should support Trump, obviously. Oh, sure. Why, you're not like a citizen or anything?
I'm born in America, you know.
Oh, so you're American? Yeah, you're American.
So what should he do when he is attacked by white people? How can you vote for Donald Trump? You're a Mexican. What should he do?
Oh, tell him to fuck off. I don't know. You vote how you want, man. It doesn't matter what color you are. You vote
What do
whoever you want
say
to
to
vote.
that?
I agree with him. Vote for whoever you want to. Who cares what people say?
At the same?
I mean, so are you just basically saying like why it's always a white person that does it?
Like, it's not a, black guy, it's not a Mexican
So
guy.
basically, it's like that person has a superiority complex where they feel like they could tell you what you could do with your vote.
But whites can't be racist because they're supporting the blacks and the Mexicans, right?
But then it all, like, what's support? You know what I mean? Like, how is it support? Like,
Because they do BLM rounds.
right. It all could be smoke and mirrors, but basically it's just like, okay, these people have superiority complexes. Because, you see white people, Superman, all the superheroes and stuff like that, and there's always a white savior in the movie, but it's just kind of like, okay, they probably feel like they could tell you how you're supposed to think, how you're supposed to act, because we're in a white supremacist society. You know what I mean?
What do you say?
Yeah.
I personally think that whenever a leftist is talking to you, no matter what he's talking about leftism. He's talking about taking power from you to the state. So if he's telling you he's talking about you're being black, he's talking about leftism. If he's talking about you're being Latino, leftism. It's all about that. So the minute you say, yeah, look, you can look at my skin and yeah, I'm black or I'm Asian or I'm whatever, but I don't agree with you, you ain't black. That's what they mean. They mean you ain't leftist.
Amazing. Right here real fast, and then one phone call for you.
Hey, I got a quick question for Joe before you take off. If you win this district, what are you going to do with the population that's stuck on drugs, and how would you change?
I think one of the biggest things we have to do is we have to get those mental health facilities open back up. ACLU sued the state of California to allow people who have mental disabilities or drug dependencies to check themselves out of rehab prior to the completion of treatment. So we have to be able to open those things back up and allow these people to get treatment because the Constitution says that people who are under the age of majority or not mentally capable of making decisions cannot make decisions for themselves. So it's up to the government to make those decisions for them, and so they have to go back to rehab until they can get out and become productive parts of society.
And and who's going to pay for that?
Taxpayers are going to pay for
Okay.
that. But we're not going to do it through taxing you with more gas.
No. Like, because I have a lot of friends that live in that area, and they're stuck on drugs. I've seen them under the bridge, and good guys, and they do their life away because of drugs.
Yeah, the government actually has grants to pay for those programs, and unfortunately, it's taxpayers' monies. But you know what? It's money going to good use.
Do drug addicts vote?
In California, they do.
Because I saw a truckload of drug addicts going at the voter poll by my house, and the Democrat was driving the truck. I'm like, drug addicts vote?
Maxine Waters paid him $1.50 to vote last
Really?
election cycle. Yeah,
Drug addicts?
everybody on Skid Row.
What the? A call. Yes, who's calling? Who's calling?
Sal from Ontario, Canada. Can you say it, Jesse?
Sal from Ontario, Canada. You're on the air.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
My question is for Joe and sort of Destiny. I was wondering, Joe, can you explain what a per capita stat is?
A per capita stat?
We don't have that in America.
Per capita stat is basically like the only people who are counted. It's not the entire majority.
Okay,
You saying?
thanks.
Is that right?
But I'm pretty sure Destiny has a different answer, so we'll go ahead and hear what he got to say, because he's always right.
Per capita just means like a proportion.
Say it loud so you hear.
Per capita is like a proportion. So if you've got like 80 people and 20 people, but you prevent like 18 of the 20 from doing something, but you prevent 20 of the 80 people from doing something, you're discriminating more against the 18 out of 20, even though you're discriminating against 20 out of the 80 because the percentage is higher, the proportion is higher. It's like a stats thing.
And that's why Democratic policies never work, because they're too confused and everybody gets screwed in the end.
Wait, but why were you confused when Destiny was explaining the stats earlier?
Why did you ask that question? Why did you ask that? He's gone? What? Hey, Sal, what made you ask that?
Huh? Oh, because they had a disagreement earlier about the per capita numbers.
We're good.
All right, thank you, Sal. Who else? This is last call. Courtney, you're on the air. Thanks for calling.
Hi, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I have a question for your people that approve of Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
I would really like to know, why is it that Black Lives Matter only care about when it's a white on black crime, not when it's a black on black crime?
Let me do this, and then they'll respond to you. Joe have to go. He has another engagement. Joe, before you leave, I want a petition from you because I want it from them as well. Who's going to win, Trump or Joe Biden? Let's choose it.
President Trump.
Right on. Thank you for coming, man. Last word? Last word about anything?
Don't worry about what people say about you. If you feel something, just do whatever you feel. Is America, land of the free, home of the brave, except for some people, but who cares, you know? Go check my name. Check my name, all right?
What's your website, Joe?
JoeCollinsForCongress.com. It's all spelled out, no letters. I didn't make it confusing.
Thanks for coming, Joe. Okay, thank you, Joe. Who want to respond to that question?
Her name is Courtney, right?
Yes, Courtney.
All right, so basically, it's not really black on black or white on white. What I've observed is the police against a black individual, you know? So it's like someone that has authority against a black individual.
But doesn't that defeat the purpose of Black Lives Matter, because blacks are killing their own race?
I mean, every race kills their own race. That's a fact.
Yeah, but the Black Lives Matter movement is because Black Lives Matter, correct?
Well, it's
so
like
if
you're
Black Lives
taking.
Matter,
Well, they have
why are African Americans killing their own race?
Everyone kills their own race. Like Europeans killed each other by
But
the
they don't
thousands.
stand up
So
for
it's
it.
like
They
that's a
don't-
whole different argument. So what they're talking about is basically they don't want authority who has been, sworn to protect and serve to kill black individuals like their lives don't matter. That's
Well, she
all
wanna
it's
know
about.
why don't the Black Lives Matter
no,
stand
but
up
she's
for the
bringing up a
blacks?
different argument, which has nothing to do with their purpose at
no,
all.
but their purpose is the fact that Black Lives Matter. So
But-
if Black Lives matter so much, then you would
What?
value your same race, and you
No,
would
it's from
do
the
whatever it
recording
takes
software.
to save that race,
I mean-
instead of only caring about when police or whatnot kill their race. If it's a white person, they care. But you have BLM assaulting other black people. There was just an incident in LA the other day where a black veteran was assaulted by Black Lives Matter. They stole his Trump or his American flag from him.
Okay.
Why is that tolerated? If you're really standing for something, you should stand for every single black person, not just the black people that are killed by cops.
Yeah,
White
that sounds good to someone that just wants to be right. And you just want to be right. That's all it is.
No,
So you're
it's
creating
a little
you're creating an
hypocritical.
argument
It's a
in your
double
mind
standard.
to just
It's
sound
a-
right
it's a
to go
double
against
standard.
Black Lives Matter when you know that's not the purpose. Every single race kills their own race. If you live in a close proximity,
But you don't see a White Lives Matter, do you?
that's not.
Do
but
you see
you're
an
oh my
organization going around saying
So-
White Lives Matter? No,
Okay,
you don't.
it's because we know in America there's no question that white lives matter. The problem with the way that we treat black lives in America is it seems like there is a lack of accountability whenever there would be extrajudicial killings of black men by white cops. That's where BLM came from. It was the holding accountable these police precincts that have a vested interest in protecting their cops when it seems like they can always get away, or a lot of the time get away with murdering black men. Everybody agrees that a black man killing a black man or woman is wrong. Nobody's debating that. Everybody agrees that when a white person is killed, it's wrong. Nobody's debating that. The reason why BLM started was because it seemed like there was an accountability problem with police officers and being held accountable when they killed black people. That was the problem.
Statistics don't
Okay,
actually show that, but I
once
would,
again,
but I would,
it
what
takes
I
me
always
back to
wonder
my
about though,
original
Hold on a
point.
minute. Hold on,
If
Colin.
Black Lives Matter,
Hold on.
you guys
Hey.
for everyone.
Okay, hold
you
on.
can't,
all
you
right? Hold on.
can't do a
And
movement
you-
like
no,
that.
no, no.
I don't,
Ed, you want to respond? Go ahead.
I don't know. I've never understood why when issues
when it's a white cop.
of race come up, when politicians start talking about black people, they always start talking about the criminals. Like they got pictures of George Floyd, who was a criminal, like he's some kind of saint.
Yeah.
Why aren't they talking about the majority of people who are good people, hardworking people, and victims and running. I don't understand why blacks, especially when Democrats talk about, are always talking about criminals. I don't get that. That's not the majority of black people.
George Floyd might have been a criminal, but that doesn't mean he deserves to be executed on the
No,
ground
I'm not,
by cops.
yes, but it doesn't mean he deserves to be geographied.
Like, when you're an activist,
He
you're
wasn't
trying
executed.
He was
Just
executed.
FYI.
He was executed. He did not die of a drug overdose. He absolutely did not. Read the corner. Yeah, watch the video. Have you ever seen somebody die? Have you seen anybody? Nobody that it's. Well, he very conveniently died of a drug overdose. It took 8 minutes while another cop was kneeling on his back. Okay? You can't make a movement and cover every single thing, right? If we say that BLM, well, why don't you care about black-on-black murders? Okay, fine, we do now. Oh, well, why don't you care about black people that die of, the flu? Or why don't you care about black people that die?
Respond to what Andrew said.
I want to know if it's good for people to elevate and make saints out of petty
No
criminals.
one is making a saint out of him. It's the idea that if
pictures
you
of them
mess
with
up in
wings and
America,
halos all
if
over
you
the
mess
place.
up, if you mess up, you don't deserve to be killed by the cops. But that's why BLM started, because it seems like people like you will come out and say, well, he was no angel, so maybe the cops should have killed him. But you're asking, like, why are they holding him up? Because it's a person that shouldn't have been killed by a cop without due process.
Put the camera back on me. Oh, but they're not in front of me. Whatever. How do you respond in the black, whenever liberals, especially black and white, mention black people, it always the criminals that they make the heroes, while the good blacks look like left in the background somewhere. Why are they promoting black criminals over the good blacks? That's what he's asking.
Well, when we're talking about
Answer
BLM,
that.
we're
No,
usually...
answer
well, because
that
that's
question.
not BLM's job. That's not what Black Lives Matter
No,
is
he
about.
want to know, why is it that you people?
What do you mean by that, Jesse?
See? That's racist.
Well, I feel like
Why they promote the criminal blacks and not the decent blacks?
Well, the only example that we have based off what he said is the George Floyd incident. So I feel like that's where he's coming from. He's basically saying like all he knows is George Floyd, but who else have they upheld that?
No, I guess
What about-
this
is
is
it
one of the things
Castile?
I've always liked about
What
Donald Trump.
about-
Is he talks about businesses, he talks about jobs.
Right.
I mean, those are the things that you think, that I would
Also,
want to come into
basically,
my.
like the liberals don't try to, basically talk about the black upper class.
Always, well, not only upper class or working class. It's always grieving.
Right now, the topic has been on criminal justice, which isn't going to affect wealthy people as much, just because that's how it goes, because wealthy people don't typically...
The topic didn't just fall out of the sky. I mean,
No, it was in response to extrajudicial killings of black people by police officers. That's where BLM came from, whether you would agree or disagree with it.
I
But
understand. I
it's not
understand
like-
that's where, but
it's not like every single person that's killed by the cops. You have black men that will get killed just for saying they have a firearm in the car, that will get shot by a police officer. Where was the NRA defending that person? Where were Republicans defending that person?
Actually, Republicans did defend that person.
The NRA was very absent in their voice. You can go
No,
check
but
their Twitter feed.
but
They have so much
I
to say
understand-
about gun rights for so many other people.
But all the stats, including stats from liberal studies, show that police use fatal force on white people more than they do on black people.
But there's not a question in this society. When a white person gets killed by a cop, everybody rallies behind the white person, that it's an injustice. But when it's absolutely true, it is absolutely true.
You mean
can pretend that it's not.
You mean like Tillinger?
You can pretend all you want. You can pretend all you want. What about Ben Shaver? Everybody agreed that was... Well, that's not my fault that you're uninformed, sir. I'm very sorry that I can't help you with that. Meet me after for 30 minutes so we can chat. But when a white man is killed by the cops, most people agree like, oh man, if that was wrong, it was messed up. However, when black people get killed by the cops, we start asking all these questions. Did he have fentanyl in his system? Did he have a rap sheet? Did the guy have a gun on him? Well, he had a gun in his car. We ask all these questions.
Whenever a cop kills somebody, the question is, was he defending his life or somebody else's life? That's the question on anybody, on everybody. And yet the riots start before anybody even asks the question or finds out the answer.
Sure, but riots don't come as a reasoned, proportional response to some perceived injustice. They don't, right? So the language of the unheard, right? Riots are people that feel like they've exhausted all other options. You can laugh. I mean, our lived experience is great when it comes to cops. I agree with you. It's very hard to relate to. I'm never worried about getting shot when I get pulled over or having a cop profile me.
Oh, the caller's still there.
Oh, sorry. Courtney, what's up?
Courtney.
Hi.
Hi.
What's up, Jesse?
So are you satisfied?
No, because I think it's a bunch of BS. Like, bottom line, don't resist arrest and you won't get shot by a cop. But if Black Lives Matter, then it should involve every black life, not just pick and choose
You've heard of mine.
who you want that to pertain to. And I'm sorry, but
I just think the difference is that if you're white, if you're white and you resist an officer, it seems like you have less a chance of getting killed. How many people saw the video just a couple months ago of the two?
I'm white, and that's not the case at all. If I were to resist an officer, well, first off, I have the common sense and the moral background, and my parents taught me better not to do that. So I just wouldn't do it, and I respect police officers.
Do you think that somebody that resists the cops deserves to be killed?
It's a lack of respect.
Do you think that somebody that resists arrest should be murdered by a cop? Do you think one of those consequences should be getting killed by a police officer?
Pulling for their gun? Yeah, I'm sorry, that officer deserves
Man, it is.
to go
I
home
just
to
want to
their
say,
family.
it is crazy to me
that
that.
officer deserves to go home to their family. What if they grab the gun and shoot the officer? Then what?
Damn.
Then
I just want to say
what?
it is insane to me that in a room full of Republicans that all love your freedom so much, you're ready to bend over to the cops, and if you get arrested for anything, you're willing to
don't
die if you resist arrest?
It's not like literally a child could understand that. You don't resist arrest. You were doing something shady that got you in that.
Yeah, all the Republicans addicted to meth in the Midwest where I come from aren't saying the same shit, but I mean, you can pretend that if you
All right,
want.
thank you for your call. I gotta run. Thank you so much for your
That
call.
led to the police being
Tell about. Bye. So let me explain something. Before we started the show, the town hall, they told me to look at that camera, and they were yelling at me. And now they would change the route, and I didn't know they had told him to. And so now I need to look over here. Is that right? What the? So that's why I was asking him about the. Okay. There was something. Do you feel? Let me ask you. Do you feel embarrassed when they elevate black criminals over the decent blacks? Because I never hear them elevate decent black people, but they always elevate the criminal blacks, the ones that are running from the cops and attacking the cops and have criminal records, and they have king-like funerals for them, and they lift them up as heroes. They say their name, remember their name, George Floyd. Do you feel embarrassed knowing that they're putting black people out there as criminals rather than decent black people?
That's not even the argument. It's just that a life has been taken.
I'm asking you a different
No,
question.
I understand that, but it's like, and why are they promoting them anyway?
Because they want to use them. No, because they want to use them. They want other black people to feel fear, hate the cops, and vote for the Democrats.
But who are we talking about? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, is it George Floyd or like, who are the criminals? Are the criminals somebody that has been killed?
What?
Are the criminals that you're talking about somebody that has been killed?
They
Such
are
as
dead.
George Floyd. Right, that are dead.
Yeah,
So
they're
those
all
are the
criminals.
I mean, no. I mean, come
But
on.
they're not criminals now, they're dead.
Not all criminals.
I mean-
Was Breonna Taylor a criminal?
Yes.
And what? She did not have a warrant for her arrest. That is absolutely not true. It's
thing
just
is,
not true. You guys
because-
live in other realities. Her name was on a search warrant, not a warrant for an arrest. Those are two very different things. And the search warrant doesn't give you the right to kill somebody. Because I can tell you, because her ex-boyfriend had been involved in criminal activities in the past, and
I
they
rest
thought that
my
they
case.
could. What?
I rest my
Oh,
case.
so if your ex-boyfriend is involved in criminal activity, a cop can bust down your door and shoot you to death?
Yeah, she was living with another guy that was using drugs or something.
No, he was not using drugs. That guy was a law-abiding
He
citizen,
was doing
Jesse. Come
something with
on.
drugs, right? They all do.
This is why we need BLM. We need some more BLM in this room. Jesus.
Well, again, it's not like uplifting that person that's a criminal. It's more so having empathy for a human life. And I'll never feel
But they
like
don't
that's
have
wrong.
empathy for their own life. They run from cops.
You know,
They
I mean,
attack
you can't
cops.
say,
They get
but
high.
it's easy to say that from the outside looking in.
What do you mean?
You know, like, you don't know what that person goes through. You
I
have
know
no
why they
idea.
use drugs, because they got issues.
I mean, yeah, but if you grew up in that same environment, who's to know what you'll end up?
But I grew up on a plantation. I didn't use.
Exactly. You grew up on a plantation.
I smoked pot.
You didn't grow up in the inner city where, like, if you walk to school, somebody's might try to kill you or jump you,
Right.
or like all of these different scenarios.
But there's no reason to go
so
after
you
the
have
cop.
to start understanding the people that you are talking about.
Right, I understand all that.
Have you talked to any of those people?
Every day.
Who?
whole
You
lot of
talk
black
to people in the inner city, like, what are you going through?
Yeah.
Why are you acting like this?
Yeah.
Why are you going through this trauma?
Yeah. Every
Okay.
day.
Okay, so you should understand.
I may not know my flaws, but I know black people.
But you know them only from your perspective. Because
No.
you'll say, okay, I
I
grew up
used
on
to
a-
live in South Central.
Okay.
I rest my case.
But how old but how old are you? Like, were you like 50?
No, in my 18.
You were 18 and you grew up in South Central in what?
When I moved from Alabama. I moved.
1970?
Yeah, white
Did
folks
you
was
grow
sick.
up in South Central after the crack epidemic?
No, white people
No, you
still
did
there.
not. South Central was a totally different neighborhood
Right.
when you first went there.
Yeah.
Now, I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 86 and I grew up in LA.
Yeah, I did
And
leave
all
with
of,
the
and
white
the
people
majority
now.
of my friends were more than likely foster kids or they were raised by their grandparents.
Right.
Yeah, it
but
wasn't
I
no
still
plantation.
We still show them how to overcome them. But
Okay,
I gotta-
well, show
I
'em
wanna
how to-
get-
okay,
I
go
want to
ahead.
get to this young lady in the mask. Yes, ma'am. I know, but you screaming out, you having a fit. Oh. Hold on a minute. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, you don't?
He's good.
Yeah.
My hands have been
All right. Another phone call? Sam, you're on the air. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Jesse, huge fan of you all. Firstly, before I ask my quick question, I wanted to follow up on what Courtney was saying earlier, because Courtney mentioned the idea that if you're resisting arrest, you basically deserve at that point to kind of get shot. However, in our country, we really have a reasonable force standard, for example, right? If someone's walking away, they probably don't deserve to get shot 16 to 20 times. So if we look at something like the Laquan McDonald murder back in Chicago, where I'm from, obviously, where he was walking away from the officer, and then he ended up getting shot 16 times just for walking away in a matter of seconds, is that really reasonable force?
What happened to the officer?
What's happened to the officer?
I believe the officer did actually, in this case, actually was found guilty, which is great, but unfortunately, it's an anomaly compared to the many that actually are able to get away with it.
Murder, you get go on trial. I said if you commit murder, you get arrested, you go on trial, you're found guilty. That's what happened.
That was a bad case to use. You have
However,
another
the
one?
problem is when we have scenarios like, for example, in Kenosha recently, the issue that we have is that when we see someone getting shot multiple times, we're immediately saying, well, they deserved it. They resisted arrest. But does resisting arrest automatically mean that you deserve to get shot at that point? Is there not a standard in some degree of context that needs to be
Andrew,
considered?
go ahead.
Nobody says that. It's just a false argument.
Speak
Nobody says,
directly to the microphone.
nobody says that the minute you resist arrest, you deserve to get shot. Police officers have a right to protect their lives. We're sending them into dangerous situations so we don't have to go into them. They have a right to protect their lives. If they think their life is in danger, and that's a reasonable thing to think, they have a right to open fire.
But in a
But
scenario,
it's not-
in a
but
scenario
nobody-
like what we
listen,
have
I've seen a lot of cops
where
arrest a
someone's
lot of
walking
people, and they
over
don't
over
open
a
fire
period
when
of like
people.
Hold on,
8 to
caller.
10
Hold on,
seconds
caller.
over
Hold
the
on.
cap-
Hold on. Go ahead, Andrew.
You know, police normally do not open fire just because people resist arrest. They open fire when they think their life or somebody else's life is in danger.
Thank you for calling, sir. Anybody here have questions? Right here. And then here. Yeah, stand up.
Question is a statement.
Okay.
You guys are talking about BLM, and I think Destiny said that the reason why BLM was created because of the disproportionate killings of black men. Well, last year it was only 13 unarmed black men that got killed by the police. Only 4 of those resisted arrest. If you look at the numbers of the black men that were killed by homicide, it was 6,500. 90% of that 6,500 was black on black crime. So I think what the lady was saying was when Black Lives Matter, they only mattered in a certain percentage to a certain amount of people. So this whole notion that what's being done is just. When you bring up the Breonna Taylor case, Breonna Taylor, for instance, got fired for being an EMT because they found a dead body in a car that she was renting. She was on the search warrant because she had criminal activity going on with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend was coming to her apartment with her new boyfriend. So it's not like all this comes out of nowhere. You know what I mean?
Her boyfriend, her new boyfriend was so scared of her ex-boyfriend, that was the reason why he opened fire. The idea that these two people were in cahoots with one another just totally doesn't make sense if you know anything at all about the story. I don't know where you get your talking points from.
What about the body?
What about the body was an unrelated case like 5 years earlier. 5 years earlier. It was like 5 years earlier. 5 years earlier. It wasn't her car. It was a car rented under her name by her ex-boyfriend. No, that's not how ownership in the United States of America works. When you rent a car, you don't take ownership of the car. Yeah, sure. And somebody else rented that car in her name.
Didn't her boyfriend open fire on the police?
What?
Didn't her
He fired one shot, and then he called the police.
When
somebody breaks... I'm sorry, I thought you were a big Second Amendment guy. Are you no longer a Second Amendment guy?
The Second Amendment doesn't give you the right to open fire on the police with a warrant.
So, I don't know how you guys do shit in California. I'm from Nebraska, okay? If somebody barges down your door in Omaha, you fire back.
They announced
Of course,
themselves.
that's totally
They
reasonable.
announced
and
themselves. They announced that they had a warrant.
One neighbor out of 11 said that they heard the announcement. But
Yeah.
regardless,
Yeah.
if you want to create an organization that's dedicated to black-on-black crime, do it. People would support you. But no... Yes, that's what Black Lives Matter is all about. Yes.
I'm sorry, but you're using the name Black Lives Matter. That's why the young brother right here is saying, oh, I don't believe it's an organization, when it truly is. It's the sentiment Black Lives Matter that confuses people. If Black Lives really matter, you'd be protesting Planned Parenthood, 250,000 black kids every single year. So that means every 4 years, 10% of our population dies. I don't want to hear Black Lives Matter when it only matters to certain percentage. Certain percentage.
When you say kids and population, okay, let's be clear, you're referring to fetuses, oftentimes younger than 3 months old.
We're not going to have this. Listen, I respect you. I respect you talking, but I'm not.
Debate abortion, okay? But that's not the same thing.
We're not going to debate abortion.
Number two, you said it correctly. You said it correctly earlier. You said it correctly.
Let him talk. Let him speak. Let him speak.
You
Let him
said it
speak.
correctly earlier. BLM was created because of the extrajudicial killing of black men that didn't seem to be taken seriously by police departments. If you want to create an organization that talks about other types of like Black Lives Lost, by all means do that. But don't say that every single organization created needs to cater to every single issue.
I didn't say every single organization does, but I'm glad you brought up that point, because once again, only 13 unarmed black men were killed last year by the police, as opposed to 35 unarmed white men that were killed. So when we're saying like it's about police brutality, why don't they have a White Lives Matter? Why don't they have this type of thing? And if you are going to call yourselves Black Lives Matter, why isn't it everybody? Why not just call it Black Lives Matter when police get killed? Excuse me, when they get killed by police.
We have a White Lives Matter organization. It's called the United States of America. Nobody in the United States. Stay mad. Oh yeah, let me hear it. I love it. Yep. Organization. It's called the United States of America. Nobody in the United States. Stay mad. Oh yeah, let me hear it. I love it. Yep. I love it. I love it. If a white guy gets killed, people aren't out here making all these excuses for why he should have been killed. Seems like it happens for black people more often than not. We saw it happen on stage earlier. I heard this gentleman say it over here. He had fentanyl in his system. If you want to create an organization to talk about black-on-black violence, do it. There's tons of different ways you can do that. Whatever you want to call it, you know? Sure.
Right here, go ahead.
Yeah, so this question's for all three of you. Should it be legal to camp out on the sidewalks in Los Angeles? Why or why not? For all three of you.
You want to go first, Andrew?
Absolutely not. It should not. It is not. Should not be legal to live on the streets that other people pay for. It's not good for people. It's not good for the city. It's not good for anybody. It is not hard to put up shelters for people and make sure they go into them. It's been done before. You don't have, it's not torturing somebody to get them off the street. Most of the people living on the street are mentally ill or suffering from mental illness induced by drugs. They need to be taken care of. They should not be left out in the street. And everybody else has rights too. You have a right not to have people like lying on your street outside, and not to have them fouling the street, and not to make it dangerous for people to walk.
Sherman.
Yeah, I'm actually along the lines of what he said. Like, there's a reason why they are on the street. Like, I live in the valley, and every time I go under the freeway, I see tents, you know, next to $1 million homes and things like that. But then it's just like there's a cause to the effect. So what caused them to be homeless? They might have a drug problem, or they might be down on their luck, whatever. But we do need some social programs to help support people like that, instead of just saying, okay, you can't sleep here. You know, because it's the government's job to provide that for them, to me, you know, but everybody else may think differently. But I think that if you're going to say this person can't sleep within your city boundaries, the cities are corporations and they have control, you know, you have to be like, okay, well, you can't sleep here, but if you're inside of my city, I'm going to give you an option to sleep here, you know, in a shelter or something like that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to take away the ability for people to sleep on the street, if you want to make it illegal, you have to provide some type of social housing for them. You can't just make it illegal and what, are you going to pay $70,000 a year to lock them up in jail instead?
Wait, you're saying it should be legal or not?
No, it can be legal or illegal. I don't really care. I think it should be legal. If people are out there, it's because you don't have the places for them to go. So let them stay out there until somebody's embarrassed enough to do something about it. Like something needs to happen. If you make it illegal, what are you going to do? You want to pay $70,000 a year to lock them up? That's even more wasted money than doing something to actually treat these people. I don't think people are out on the street because they want to be, or because it's fun, or because they enjoy it. They're out there because the necessary social programs don't exist that help them get off the street and get their lives back together.
The young lady here, last question. Did I see your hand? Okay, yeah, right there. I was out in the valley the other day, and I was driving down the road. There was this Chinese cafe, and they had people sitting outside, you know, the cafe having lunch or whatever. And there was a woman right in front of them, because they were sitting on the sidewalk. She got right in front of them and took a dump. She literally took a dump. Everybody, the people driving up and down the road, like, what the? And the people that were eating were just like, oh. She was literally taking a dump. Not a number one, but a number two. I was like, this is not California. This she should be locked up. And the mayor and the congressman, everybody with her. Yes, ma'am. Stand up for me.
Yes, I just want to ask for all of you guys, what do you think the job of a police should be now? Like, because I feel like it's really confusing nowadays what police should do or not, and because of BLM and everything like that, and I just want to know what should be the job of the police nowadays.
Sherman, you go first. What should be the jobs of the cops now, the police?
Should be what's already, you know, what they already are supposed to stand for, to protect and serve. You know, so that's basically it. But if they uphold that in the right way, like I have 3 family members that are police officers, and I have nothing against the police, you know, but in the organization, you're always going to have your bad apples, and you're always going to have people that are going to abuse their power. You know, so it's like that's just a fact. So what are we going to do about the people that abuse their power, that don't protect and serve, but they use their authority to bully people or pester people? Because it's like a police officer is kind of like a badge to do whatever the fuck you want in America. You know,
Defunding the cops.
Well, no, not really, but I do feel like some of the funds could be, you know, like proportioned to go to different social programs so people won't commit those type of crimes. And not to say like the police isn't needed, but I do feel like, okay, there's a reason why these people are committing these crimes. Let's figure out a way to like not say, okay, well, there's no crime, you don't have a job, but basically like, okay, we really want to protect our citizens, not create an environment where there's not enough resources so we can employ police, you know?
Andrew, how do you respond to young lady?
I think the job of the police is what it's always been. Policing has gotten much, much better over the last 30, 40 years. Police departments all over the country have integrated. They're not the police forces they were in the 70s. It's entirely different. Community policing has come in where they actually go into communities so they know the people. And yeah, there's so many cops. I mean, I think it's 700, 150,000 cops, something like that. They're going to be a lot of bad guys. Even if 1% of them are bad, that's a lot of bad guys. The police have to be police. The whole thing in America is don't let power collect in one place. That's it. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter if it's Facebook. It doesn't matter if it's the presidency. It doesn't matter if it's the police. Don't let power collect in one place. The police have to be policed. But their job is a very hard one. They not only put themselves in danger, they observe and live through a lot of the crap that some of us don't have to see. You know, and that makes them. It's a very difficult emotional thing. So I just think that that's their job is to protect the good people from the bad people. It's pretty simple. You got to protect the good people from the bad people, and obviously, the bad cops have to be held to account.
Are you for defunding the cops?
I'm for more funding.
Well, how do you respond, young lady?
Just 2 things, real quick. I like that Republicans defend unions when it's police that are involved. That's very funny to me. Secondly, I think that also this idea that police are like this involved in monumentally dangerous work every single day is a total myth. I'm pretty sure police officer ranks as like 14th or 15th in like most dangerous jobs in America. So the idea that police officers are constantly under threat of being murdered every single day of their lives is not true. In terms of what do the police do and what they should do, I think that the job of a police officer has expanded way past what it was ever meant to be. Like, police officers are there, they should be called on when crimes are being committed, and you need somebody to come in and take care of the crime being committed. But now they are social workers, they resolve domestic disputes, they're called in for kids, for things like truancy, they're called in for mental illness problems. People call the cops when there's like a dog loose on the street. We have to figure out like what niche the police should exist in, and then we have to have other services that exist to take care of the other problems. A lot of the killings that we see, unfortunately, with police and other people are when you have these mentally ill people that police don't know how to deal with, that they're brought in to handle, that end up killing a guy because he's crazy and the police don't know how to deal with it. So, yeah, I think that the scope of what the police do should be way more narrow than what it is now. And then we should have other services to kind of take the place of all these other things that police have started to cover.
Are you for defunding the police?
If defunding means reallocating those funds to other services that would take care of those things, then yeah.
Amazing. Is that it? Oh, okay. Last word here. Prediction. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose?
If it's a sane world, Donald Trump will win. It's a big if. You know, I mean, I think that I have never seen the establishment, the corporations, the establishment press, the deep state. I've never seen them mobilize to stop a single person the way they have just tried to stop Donald Trump. And so they may win, but I'm hoping they'll pull.
Do you believe that with this terrorist attack upon America and the Democratic states control, because they have not done anything about it, they are running people into the arms of Donald Trump?
Yeah, I hate to say it's helping. It's a horrible thing.
It is helping.
Yeah, it is
It's
helping.
the best thing that could happen for the president. Prediction, who's going to win, who's going to lose?
I'm not sure, but I do think that Trump is going to win.
Yeah. Right on. And you say?
Biden all the way. Where are my Biden fans in the audience? There's got to be at least one or two of you out there, no?
Nobody.
I hope you guys are all okay on election night. If you guys need to call a friend or family, you got the suicide hotline on Google. Make sure to look it up. I'm sure this guy over here, Daily Wire writer, is going to have all sorts of conspiracies for you for why Trump lost the election. Voter fraud, election fraud, 4 million illegals being busted to vote. Don't worry. You guys will find some way to cope. I'm sure you'll be fine.
Andrew, last word. Closing remarks.
What's that?
Closing remarks.
Well, you know, it is funny that if Donald Trump should lose, I hope he doesn't, but you won't see conservatives screaming. You won't see them taking videos of themselves in their car. You won't see them, you actually won't see them saying, if there is not evidence of big voter fraud, you won't see them saying, oh, we have to change the system. I mean, this is the thing. Democrats have actually convinced themselves that there is no legitimate way for them to lose. They lose in the Electoral College, which is the way we have elections in this country. They want to get rid of the Electoral College. You know,